if you're Karen, are you thinking, would I rather take the beating on that and be done with this shit, or go to a third trial?
I don't want to go to a third trial.
I wouldn't want to go to a third trial. It's like it's like the never-ending thing, because there's no guarantee they'll ever get a verdict. If you're having to go to a third trial, I think it becomes more and more clear that this is potentially one of those cases that can never be brought to a verdict, because no one knows what the hell happened and never will.
Right.
It would really be up to the Commonwealth not to bring it again, and we know that's not going to happen.
Yeah, unless there's a change of guards.
Yeah, unless Morrissey gets ousted. But I think they're so deep in, there's no backing out of it. It's like waiting 2.5 hours to get on a roller coaster at an amusement park and saying, fuck it, I'm 5 minutes away, I'm dipping.
Yeah.
No one's doing that.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, Nicole, you're going to have to join us again after this. We'll let you know when we're free.
Yeah,
we love you. We love all you do.
You've got a standing invite anyway. You don't have to.
Yes.
Whenever you want to come
and hopefully, Mandy, when we put up Andrea and Runkle, she can capitulate us maybe differently so that we're.
It's probably me. I'm probably.
No, I mean, but we need to be like in a block of 4 somehow. I don't know. Mandy will work her magic.
Yeah, like Hollywood Squares. All right.
I'll let you know.
Love you guys.
Love you. See ya.
All right, so we have with us now the all-knowing, the fabulous Andrea Burkhart.
Hi, guys. Wow, look at me. I'm like...
I think Andy's going to be working magic in the background to somehow recapitulate us.
That damn fan that you have up. It's
you want me to take the fan down?
The fan.
I don't know. I think people will panic, but you just have to trust us. You have to trust us that we're
going to watch it backstage. And now you introduce Runkle, because I kind of sucked it with Andrea's.
I thought it was great. It reminded me a lot of what you say when our kids are coming to try on clothes.
Yes.
Like if they've
introducing.
Introduce it. It's like, when Scarlett's got a new dress. Wait, where'd Runkle go? Oh, there he is.
He's there.
All right. So you know him, you love him. He is our Canadian brethren. He is hilariously funny in his dry humor. His timing's always impeccable, and the dude just knows the law. Let's bring him on. Ian Runkle, what is up, my friend?
Not too much. How are you guys?
Put the fan back. Thanks, Mandy.
Oh, and we all look normal. Thank you, Mandy.
You guys both able to stream to your channels? Did everything work?
Yeah, should be good.
Right. Good. Awesome.
How you doing, Ian? Long time no see.
Oh, it's been a bit. Just hanging on. I've got some interesting legal chaos going on, but hopefully I can talk about that soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let me ask you guys, just because the whole verdict sheet and leaving to the side whether it's confusing, whether it's got too many not guilties, this whole concept of if they are hung on just the standing OUI, the freestanding OUI, how in the hell do they know that? And then, God forbid, they stayed hung on that. If she does nothing, does that mean manslaughter is on the table next time around, even if they decide not guilty on all the lessers that involved a car hitting a human?
Yes, the answer is yes. It's a mess. So, this goes back to the last trial. This is a problem that happened during the last trial. We spotted it right away when the first verdict form comes out. Hey, there's no way for them to indicate if they've acquitted her on the greater or like some of the first lessers, and then maybe like they hung on the like you said, the OUI or something like that, one of these straightforward ones. There's no way for them to indicate not guilty to the lesser includeds anywhere on this verdict form. And I found this very perplexing. And so I went down the rabbit hole, and I found that is because Massachusetts doesn't allow that. They don't allow you to do a partial verdict just on lesser included offenses. They only let you do a partial verdict for separate indictments. So they can have a separate verdict for the murder charge. They can have a separate verdict for the leaving the scene charge. But they can't have separate verdicts on everything that is subsumed there under count 2 as a lesser included offense. So yeah, they could get all the way down to OUI, not be able to reach a verdict at all. So count 2 just stays open, and then that means they could retry her on manslaughter, which is
crazy.
Just bizarre.
It's insane.
Yeah. So I was like, and I haven't reread the whole case. I just like pulled up a little snippet, but I was looking at that Roth case because someone put a comment in and I couldn't remember. And it said there that the judge ordered the verdicts of not guilty be entered as to the offenses as charged and the first lesser included offense on each indictment, and declared a mistrial as to the remaining lesser included offenses. Doesn't that make it seem like she could do something if she wanted to, if they came back and said,
but she doesn't want to.
Right.
Well, she doesn't want to, but also the Roth court said specifically the judge did it wrong. The judge was wrong to do that. But
Okay, that's what
basically, having done that, we're stuck with the double jeopardy implications, which tells you everything you need to know about why they don't want him doing it in the first place.
Right. So that's, and so going back to what I said this morning, which is under Massachusetts law, they can consider this freestanding OUI the exact same as the manslaughter. And if they do not reach a verdict on all of them, the manslaughter stays on the table for trial 3. And that's the way the law wants it in Massachusetts. Is that everyone's understanding then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is insane.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what we said this morning. And then I fessed up that I just read that one little snippet from there. And that's what I was worried about, that might be the beginning sentence of, and that judge fucked it up. We don't want him doing it like that. So thank you, Andrea.
and beyond that, like the punishment for an OUI on a first OUI in Massachusetts is insane. It's 2.5 years max on a sentence. Like Illinois, I mean, your first DUI, we call them DUIs here. You know, it's a year max. It's actually 364 days is the most you can get sentenced. But no one ever gets sentenced on the first one. Most clients get supervision, which is where you plead guilty. They stay the conviction. You handle all the shit that you have to handle that was part of the plea agreement, like the victim impact panel. You know, you have to go in and get your drug and alcohol eval. You have to do the aftercare step and pay the fines. If you handle all that, they dismiss the case, so you don't get the conviction. That's typically what we can get here. But I mean, like in here, anything that goes over a year is a felony. Like it's just it's insane to me, the punishment on that in Massachusetts. I've never seen anything like it.
So Runkle, in light of this whole, the fact that if they ended up staying hung on only the OUI and how that now affects that the manslaughter is still there, would you have still wanted the lesser included of the OUI?
I mean, I'm torn on the lesser included because honestly, they might go with the OUI. And I mean, it's really up to Karen at this point because
what would be the worst is if they're really hung on it. That's what would be the most frightening is if they're hung on it.
No, that I agree. And that one becomes a potential concern. But I don't know. I feel like if they need to do some horse trading, if they need to do some compromise verdict there, it's a good thing to have in there because I could see them saying, listen, we can't agree she hit him, but we can agree that every single person in Canton is drunk at all times, and therefore no one should ever be allowed into a motor vehicle in the town of Canton. And therefore, and I mean, it's kind of interesting, the difference in the Canadian-US aspect, because Canada tends to have punishment or tends to have offenses that are very broad in nature. And so guess what the maximum penalty for a maximum penalty for a first offense, simple impaired driving is in Canada?
I'm imagining it's stiff because y'all don't even let us in if we have a DUI.
Yeah, that's true.
Like,
now I'm going to say it
can't
has
even
to
come into our country if you have a DUI conviction. So I'm guessing it's stiff.
The maximum penalty, like the theoretical nobody ever gets this maximum, is 10 years.
Oh wow, gosh. I
But
forgot
nobody ever
about
gets
that,
it.
Bob. We had some musician friends who were like, I've got to go tour in Canada and I can't.
They can't.
Yeah. The
DUI,
thing is,
like, tell them you're not driving. You're in a
tour bus everywhere.
The thing is, though, for a simple impaired with no, the usual thing of like, it's, New Year's Day, somebody's driving home at 2 a.m. They hit a traffic stop. They they end up having to blow, and it's like, okay, you're blowing over, but they're going to get the minimum, which is $1,000 fine. But we tend to have these offenses that are very broadly defined, such that people can get anywhere from, so I guess but it's kind of hard to imagine how you'd get up to 10 years without committing other offenses like hitting somebody or, dangerous driving or flight from police or something like that. So it's a theoretical maximum, but I can't find any case law to like ever support a 10-year sentence on it. So it's
that's what worries me about this particular case. If she were convicted on OUI, everything else being equal in a normal courtroom, you'd expect her to get just the same sentence that any minimum first offense person is going to get. Whatever it is, suspended jail time, some community service, like Bob's saying, alcohol, all that standard stuff.
She was on the defense bar before.
What's that?
Judge Cannoni was on the defense bar before. Is that?
Oh yeah.
So you would think that that would look...
You would think that she would, if nothing else, just avoid any kind of argument that you're imposing a trial tax here or something like that. However, what concerns me is what Ian is getting at here, which is that it is a way to just backdoor some kind of liability, some kind of responsibility for all of this other stuff in the background that she's not being convicted of. But I can absolutely see this judge sitting up there on the bench thinking, oh, well, it's a minor offense, but look at all this, such unusual consequences that stemmed from it or just something like that. And then imposing extra time because of all of this other stuff that they weren't able to prove.
And that we spent millions of dollars trying the case twice, which should never factor in. But I mean, let's be real. I mean, this shit's all politics, and when you have small town politics, it's a scary proposition.
We just hope that
I know what I'd be probably doing if I was, if I'm the judge and it's like, okay, she's convicted on that. I'm like, okay, you're going to get a day in jail, time served by the day you were arrested, and off you go. Brennan, I want you to stay around because I've got some questions about my grave concerns about stuff that you've done with the, the shirt and so forth. But
this is Dream World we're talking about right now?
Yes, this is if
okay. Just wanted to be clear.
I don't think that's what Judge Cannoni would do at all. She's going to say, in recognition of the fact that you've got no criminal record and so forth, I'm gonna do 2 years and 5 months. You didn't get the maximum because you got no record. And
I mean, I'm assuming she gets day for day, but still, you know what I mean? It's like, if they get her on the OUI, like, I feel very confident she's going in, and it's like, but I mean, if you're Karen and you're like, cause like, look, we understand what our clients go through. I think it's lost on people a lot of times that the process in and of itself is part of the punishment. Having your shit go 12 months, 16 months, 2 years, and living with it every single day where you're sitting in the shower, where we all do our best thinking, and you're just mortified with this thing that's hanging over your head that is going to impact your life in such a profound way. That part of the process is punishment in and of itself. I think that people tend to forget that. And if you're Karen and you're sitting there thinking, my God, like, I can't do this. Like, I can't do it. I can't handle it emotionally. I can't handle it mentally. I don't want to do this a third time. I mean, like, we have to assume that it was Karen that made the call on that, right? We all agree that ultimately, through advice from her attorneys, but it's just like, man,
they're not making decisions without her. Some clients will just do whatever you say.
Not her.
Oh, she's very active and involved from all indications. I mean, it's highly unusual to have an accused in a criminal trial who goes up for every sidebar and it's clear she's involved. It's clear she's a very interested participant there. She's she's smarter by far than your average criminal accused, because
Yep.
your average criminal accused is, somebody who probably started out with the FASD and did their best to cure it through a lifetime of meth. And, they may not make the best decisions, which is often why they're in that seat in the first place. I mean, I had a client, he was sitting in my office, and I was like, so, which approach do you want to go with? Because the Canadian standard, you sort of have to involve people a little bit more in terms of the trial strategies and so forth. And he's like, listen, man, I don't know. I am, he's like, I am damaged. You need to make the decision. I'm like, okay, well, I very strongly recommend this one. And if you don't want any involvement, this is the one to go with. And he's like, okay, like, I don't get it. And that's the average standard. She's
100%.
not that. She's, I don't think there's any way that they're making that call without her sign off.
Mhm.
I don't want to block your faces, but I
mean,
want to
not
check
like-
some of your listener, your viewers' comments.
Yeah, I kind
Yeah.
of hate that it's blocking their faces.
Well-
but like, I mean, more than that, Ian, it's like if we're
I'll turn it
gonna
up in a bit.
kind of be truthful, like I typically can't stand when my clients are involving themselves in the practice of law, because I'm like, look, this is what you hired us for. But Karen's a different beast. I mean, Karen knows the facts, she knows the evidence forward and backwards. She's more in kind of in line with a paralegal, because I mean, typically when we're sitting at counsel table in the middle of a trial and you've got that defendant that's in your ear when you're trying to listen to a cross-examination, and you're like, hey, look, man, I gave you that pad of paper to write your shit down. I have to listen to this. It's like, I want to hear what you have to say. I really do. But I need to hear what's being said right now. Like, that's your typical kind of defendant. And like, Karen's just not that. And going through 2 trials, like I've said, I would not be shocked if she's in fact acquitted. I would not be shocked if she decided to go to law school. I mean, you hear about those stories where people kind of survive these types of cases to where it drives them. It's a driving force, and where they're saying, you know what, like I'm going to get involved with this because what just happened to me, like I want to fight from it happening to other people. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if she decided to pony up the cash and go to law school.
Yeah.
I mean, if I was a law school dean and, assuming she's acquitted and cleared and all of that, I'd be inclined to be like, hey,
come on in.
We've got a scholarship fund.
Definitely.
Come on down.
Well, Reed Seligman is doing just fine.
Yeah, 100%. All right. So Ian, I've seen you since the closings. Andrea, I've not had the pleasure of seeing you. Impressions. I want to hear what your impressions of the closings.
I thought the emotional story was very powerfully told by Mr. Jackson. You always love it when your theme and your case is so consistent that your closing is the same as your opening. It's still the same case. There was no collision.
Yep.
So they had that coherence and that kind of throwback. Remember when? Remember when? That's what we were talking about. That it just I feel like that gives the jurors a little bit of comfort in the task that they're about to undertake. Like, guys, it's not wild. It's nothing crazy. It's nothing you haven't already heard. You've known this entire time. There was no collision. That's what you're here to talk about. Hanks was just so scattershot. It was really all over the place. When he first got started, I don't know if you guys have ever been in the position of having to try a case that's just an absolute dog. You got nothing. Your client is an idiot. They got on the stand and like admitted to everything, and the cops got him on video, and it's but they wouldn't take the plea, and so here you are, and you get up and you're about to face the jury, and you're trying to like get your thoughts together, like, what do I even have to say? that is going to let me look them in the eye and say
Hard.
it. And sometimes all you have is just, ladies and gentlemen, the burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt is one of the most fundamental values of America.
Yeah.
Asked it to apply it. Thank you. Sit down.
Right.
But I got that kind of feeling from Hank. He just felt like he didn't know where he was going to start. He didn't know where to look. He didn't have confidence in where he was going to go. And that's why he started with John O'Keefe was 46 years old. Like, that was the only thing that he could like grasp and hold on to as a truth in this case that he could lean on, and then give that to the jury. So I thought that was just very, very telling in terms of kind of who had more confidence, just coming right out of the gate into the closings. The information he provided, it was just so scattershot. It really wasn't organized in any kind of coherent way. No real discernible theme that came out of the Commonwealth's close. So by and large, I think Alan Jackson, won that head to head by a landslide.
Yeah, for sure.
And I wait, hold on, babe, I had a follow up because I want Ian.
That's what I was going to say too.
Yeah, when you really resonated with me on Friday when we had the super panel over there, and all we were missing was Andrea. But when we have the panel with all of us on there, what you said really, really resonated with me, and I think that you're spot on with respect to Hank's closing, and I want you to kind of restate it so that Andrea can kind of hear your concept, because I think you're dead balls on with it.
I think it was a good close from a very particular perspective, which is that he's not speaking to me or you, and he's not even speaking to the juror who's on the fence. He's talking to the specific, he's hoping there's a juror or two who are pro-guilt, and he's talking to them, and he's saying, don't listen to anyone else in that jury room, because this is a tragedy. You need to be there. You need to be there for John O'Keefe. You need to be there for, and he's talking up the heroism of all of these extremely sketchy witnesses.
Answer the call.
Yeah. He's basically saying, you need to ignore everyone else, and I want you to dig your teeth in and just don't move. He's trying to hang. That's what I get out of that, is that he's playing for a hung jury. I don't think he thinks winning is on the table at this point. He's playing for, I wasn't the person who ran the trial where she was acquitted. And, I don't know if it's him who tries on round 3, but the Commonwealth is going to keep trying right up until Morrissey is voted out of office. That's,
Yeah.
So
unfortunately, I think that's the case.
Yeah, no, we agreed that he would take a hung jury as a win because he doesn't think he can get anything else. So, and then Andrew, one of your viewers asks, could the lesser included on count 2 be broken out as their own independent charges? Now, this would be at a defense request.
Yeah, no, it doesn't look like that's possible, and that's what the Roth case is that we were talking about earlier, and it's cited in the motion that the defense filed this morning to ask to revise the verdict form. And Roth basically says pretty clearly, because since Massachusetts operates on this grand jury system, they return indictments, and they return a separate indictment for each charge that they're pursuing against her. And so those are the only ones that really stand alone and get to be handled independently. The lesser included offenses. Okay, we went down this rabbit hole on the stream at the end of last week, because I was very confused by this. Okay, I could see a strategy where the defense, wants just the lesser included operating under the influence, because
I don't know if Mandy did something that changed all of that or what just happened.
Can we fix it?
I think
Mandy's trying to get rid of the bed. It looks like we're all laying on a.
It does kind of.
Every time I look at it, I'm like, wait, is that a bedroom? It looks like our bedroom. I'm like,
there.
Is our bed?
Oh, that didn't do it. Hold on, wait. I got
the
it.
Weird snow thing looks like a. There we go. There, that's. Sorry.
And then I can put back on the Alessi thing.
There you go. Nice.
All All right, continue, Andrea.
Yeah, so anyway, we went down the rabbit hole with the lesser included offenses because I'm wondering like who's requesting these. I can understand, okay, the defense maybe wants a lesser included OUI. Then I got confused in closing because I'm thinking if you're asking for a lesser, it's because you're inviting that compromise. So you can tell the jury, guys, no one's disputing she drove drunk. She shouldn't have. Everybody did, but whatever. She'll take accountability for that. By all means, convict her of that. But the rest of this bullshit, it doesn't need to take you any time at all. So make it real easy for him to do that compromise. But then they didn't do that. But then that also didn't answer my question about, well, why then do we have all these other lesser included offenses being included as well? The involuntary manslaughter and felony vehicular homicide, whatever that one is.
Yeah.
And so it was, I found the whole thing very confusing because the Commonwealth very clearly did not ask for lesser includeds in the charge conference. So I was looking that up as well. And apparently in Massachusetts, the judge can do it. The judge can decide to instruct on lesser included offenses regardless of
the
what
defense said they asked here, right?
What's that?
But the defense said they asked for them.
Well,
right?
I mean, I'm still very confused about this because I couldn't hear. The sound on the stream was very bad. It sounded to me like Yannetti was saying perhaps they asked for the lesser operating under the influence. But if he asked for like all of the lessers, involuntary manslaughter,
that's what I didn't understand.
I missed that, and it doesn't make sense to me as a strategy anyway. Why you would give them that many?
That's what I kept asking. I'm like, if they wanted a lesser included
of a felony.
Right, of an OUI, that I get, but why did they include 2, 3, and 4 plus 5? Like I didn't get either.
So where I came out of it was I'm not sure that they did in fact request that, and that it wasn't just the judge decided she's going to instruct on all of the lessers because the law in Massachusetts allows her to. The parties don't have to request it; they can. But they don't have a right to have her not instruct on lesser includeds if she's decided she's going to do that. Right. So all of this stuff, I found it's very strange over there in Massachusetts. It's a very strange
weird
when it comes to the lesser included. I find lesser included like so problematic anyway, because, yes, if you wanted those convictions, just take them to the grand jury. Why wouldn't you just take them to the grand jury? Obviously they didn't do that. But here we are, debating whether she is guilty of crimes that the grand jury never indicted her on, and based on theories and factual predicates that were never presented to them. And so it's like, why do we even have this grand jury process in the first place if it doesn't actually mean anything by the time you get to trial?
Right. And just to clarify, for whatever it's clever, the defense, what Andrea is describing here is the defense doesn't have the ability to say, can you make a count 4 of just this separate offense? They all have to come through the indictments, each separate charge. So the only thing the defense can ask, and we talked about this earlier when we had someone on, was that is for the lesser included. And then Runkle, what do you think would happen if the jury sends out a note that says, we have some verdicts, but we don't understand how to say them all on the verdict forms? Or if they sent a question like that, what do you see Judge Cannoni doing?
I mean, at this point, I went from giving Judge Cannoni the benefit of the doubt to actively thinking she's sort of intentionally putting things on the scale. So I kind of suspect she'd send something back like, the verdict form is the verdict form, and you need to, I cannot offer you any further instruction on it. Which,
that's what Bob said. You think the same, Andrea?
Go back and reread your verdict form. I mean, that I think is the most likely one. It's it's the one that is least exposure to her risk wise. Would it actually hurt anything to walk the jury through? Well, start on this charge and then decide if you can, if the prosecution has proven her guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, and if you find they have not, then move on to the next one, and then move on to the, you could give them instructions on how to walk their way through the verdict form. But would she do that? I'm very skeptical that she would do anything helpful like that.
Me too. Me too.
And we touched Andrea Linsky. Thank you. We just answered your question. Was it a bad idea given that it can hold everything up? And then Andrea, one of your viewers asks, or Anna Long, Woody Harrelson as Rentschler, Brad Pitt as Wolf. How do you say her name?
Mayim Bialik.
As La Posada. Not that you asked. Were you going over movies
Not
on?
bad.
Wait,
I
Woody's
got to
bald.
Sissy Spacek for La Posada. It's got to be Sissy Spacek. That's
Well,
That
I like
works.
That's a good
That
call.
tracks.
Yeah.
That's a good call. That is a good call. I'm not seeing Woody. I mean, maybe facially, Woody's got the Rentschler.
He's just that his personality. He's got that personality that I don't see as.
I loved Rentschler. I
do too. I just don't know.
He was a fabulous witness.
I thought he was a fabulous witness.
Yeah.
And
I enjoyed tremendously watching Brennan try to poke holes in Rentschler because Rentschler just wasn't having it.
No, he wasn't giving him shit, and it didn't come off as cocky and fucking dense as
Oh, it just came off as
What's
you're
their guy's
wrong,
name?
and let me
Welcher.
explain it.
Welcher.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it was fun because it was a situation. We've had this counterpoint with Alessi of an extremely smart person who's able to educate themselves on the technology or the science that the expert is there to talk about, and then literally like have a conversation with them on that level. And you see Brennan now sort of trying to do that. He's trying. He just, when it came to the actual substance of Rentschler's opinion, he couldn't hang, and it was very obvious. Rentschler just very dismissive of him because you can't hang. You don't understand the basics of what we're talking about here.
He asked La Posada twice about using the wrong word, and she corrected him. And then he was like, "But what about?" I can't remember the what he was calling it. Like, didn't you realize that wasn't a thing the first time you said it, and she corrected you?
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't stand.
I mean, so were you guys? I wasn't shocked. Isn't the right word. I was mildly surprised that Alan did both the ARCA guys, because like I had been saying, the whole time we got Bob Alessi who's going to be doing all the science guys. So when I heard Alan, like when I figured out that Alan was doing it, I thought he did a fine job. But I was a little bit surprised. Were you guys a little bit surprised that Bob Alessi didn't handle Welcher or Wolf and Rentschler?
A little bit, for sure. That said, Jackson did a great job, so I don't think there's any
right.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be second guessing them on that one because it's like, all right, well, they nailed that. So
yeah, nailed it. Jennifer Hill came over from you too, Andrea. She said, I lived in Louisiana for 6 years where they have drive-through daiquiri stands and liquor stores. Massachusetts can never have them.
No, not a chance.
Like I said, everybody's drunk in Massachusetts.
It'd be a disaster.
Do you guys know about this? The Painted Lady murder?
I don't know about the Painted Lady murder.
That came from one of your viewers as well. Unless I can't tell. Are you streaming to yours, Runkle?
No, I'm not. Not at the moment.
Okay, I mean it's up to you, obviously, but
I may have to dip at a moment's notice. And also, you guys are kind enough to invite me on. I'm happy to let people come here to find you. So
well, thanks, man. And EB gifted 10 Andrea Burkhart memberships.
Oh, got to give family hugs, Andrea.
Everybody's green today.
Oh, this was Joe Schmo from earlier. Hope it's the last Vallow trial. There was a mic drop moment. The prosecutor said that Melanie Brandon's wife at all times is still under investigation.
At the time.
Oh, at the time is said that Melanie is that
Boudreaux?
Yeah,
Melanie. We've slipped into Lori Vallow's case.
Was still under investigation at the time. Was still under investigation. Wanted his thoughts. We'll have to ask. Well, you have to go to Joe Schmo 88 and ask him. That's his channel. That's his channel. If Karen Reed was a movie, I'm casting Gilbert Humph as Hank Brennan.
All right, I got to pull up Gilbert Humph. I don't even know who the hell that is. Is he a young head? It's like I've come to realize that young actors, I have no idea who any of them are. I'm like,
no idea.
Oh my god!
I'm pretty checked out on Hollywood, so whenever people name actors, I'm like, okay, I guess that's a person.
What did you guys, both of you, what did you miss from the? I don't want to necessarily call it third party, but just the of the shady things that happened, the things that we didn't hear. What do you think would have been the most helpful to have had in this trial that wasn't there?
There's two really. I think the butt dials, the explanation of the butt dials from Brian Higgins and Brian Albert at the 2:30 a.m.
Yeah.
That was big. That got left on the table. It's not huge. I mean, what they did so successfully, I mean, if you can call it success, this time is really hang all of the third party characters, on Jen McCabe, and so she is the only face that the jury got for any of the third party culprits, the folks inside 34 Fairview, and so succeed or fail, their view of the people in 34 Fairview is inevitably going to be colored by Jen McCabe and how she does. And so, Jen McCabe then kind of being outed as, you lied to the FBI about this and that, not so ideal for the Commonwealth. But
Right.
so because of that, I'm not 100% sure that just adding it, hey, and more people lied, lied to the FBI and the grand jury as well. Probably not the hugest thing, but it is just such an important fact, and it shows the scope of what's going on in the background. Like, it's not just Jen, it's not just Carrie, it's everybody in the house. But the other one that I think was really important was the gift, the text about the gift to Courtney Proctor.
Yeah.
That one was really big, and so that had to have been a hard call to go ahead and leave that one out.
Yeah, and I felt the same way, especially anything with Higgins, because I also thought the same with his. If we could get a little more in with Higgins, you could have gotten his car was there, which isn't even third party culprit. It's just how the fuck did she back up 80 feet? Him deleting the text, which also doesn't need to be third party culprit, but could be, why were you and Kenny in the car in the Sally Port with the car for that long? And definitely the gift. I thought that was as well, a little big thing that would really kind of drive all this home without having to go super, deeper into third party culprit, but just important. Like, that just speaks volumes to what was going on with, why are you secretly giving him a gift? And why is he secretly saying you can if he was just doing his job? What about you, Runkle?
The other thing I would have liked to see more of is the phone destruction and the SIM card destruction, because it also would have absolutely gutted Brennan at the end when he's like, "What kind of expert deletes all their texts?" And it's like, because all of us are sitting there going, "Well, all of the people in the house are getting rid of their phones, they're whatever." But the jury hasn't really seen that in this trial. So, and I mean, I just raged at that, because it's like, who gets rid of their texts? I'm like, well, I use Signal for just about everything. And, deleting messages is, my Twitter deletes messages after about a month, and it just does that automatically. And, and it's fantastic. I've had people come at me to take a run at me, and the first thing they want to go do is dig through your DM or your posts from years ago to try to find something and it's like, well, it's not there. So, just doing all these things by ordinary practice is just, makes sense.
Man, Hank Brennan's thing with making Signal seem so nefarious, just made me sick to my stomach. I'm like, me personally, I have a deep, deep distrust for the government, and, post Patriot Act, when they can get in and they're in our shit all the time. I have no reason not to use an encrypted app if I can use it, not because I'm trying to hide anything in particular, just because it's none of their business. Stay out of my business. And the way that he was able to try to portray that, and I don't know if it would resonate with the jury at all. Maybe because I know what Signal is, I was more offended by him trying to make it seem like Wolf and Allen were up to no good with it. It was just man, that really bugged me. But kind of along that vein, I felt that Brennan absolutely opened the door with his questions in terms of the defense being able to state definitively who hired.
Well, I thought that door was not just opened; it was
Yeah,
kicked,
blown off
it
the
was blown
blown off
like
the casing.
yeah. They brought in the C4 to blow that door completely. And if I was the judge, I would have said, defense, go to town. Like,
Yeah.
it's open. He opened it. You get to go and you get to say exactly who hired them.
Yes.
Because if he's going to hint that there's a because he was hinting intentionally that there is a, and the judge clearly allowed them to say it's not an insurance, you're not working for an insurance company, right?
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
at the point where it's you're not working for an insurance company is relevant,
Right.
then they've
Yeah.
opened the door. Like
Yes.
if they made it that's relevant, then and Brendan did it on purpose.
Of course he did.
Like, why does the Commonwealth never have to deal with the consequences of their actions?
It's outrageous.
It's frustrating. It's frustrating. And it's like I always wonder if it's just us as defense attorneys that are sitting around. Like, I mean, I've taken the beatings for 2 decades plus in terms of just having a clear understanding that the government has all the advantages. They have the money, they have the resources. They typically have, judges that are, going to side with them typically. And, so you kind of grow accustomed to it, but it doesn't ever make it okay to me. And, just seeing it on this level though, because like when I came into it, Andrea, from like us covering Richard Allen, where, we saw like people still don't understand that we were looking at a judge on a different level of horrific bias.
Evil. Yeah.
Evil. And I'm sure you're talking about it occasionally in your lives. I'm like, look, I know y'all don't know that much about the Richard Allen case because it wasn't streamed, but like, trust us. Like, this judge was next level evil, and
the malevolence that came from that bench, and not just at the defendant in the case and the defense lawyers, and I mean, so vicious, like going after their livelihoods, going after their reputations. All of us out there, you will starve in this courthouse. You will shiver and suffer on the streets. Like, there was a level of sadism from that judge that you don't see often. And
crazy,
taking people out of courtrooms, denying everybody access to everything.
Well, so Andrea would have to wait in line. All right. And she was like, her subs came through like massively, and she had line sitters. But when Andrea would get into the courtroom, when they took the lunch break, everybody that had waited all night in line they couldn't go eat. They did their space wasn't saved for the day. They would then have to go downstairs, run downstairs, and form another line in order to get a space for the afternoon. So it was
that's insane.
It was chaos. And the rules were changing constantly. You never had any idea what you were going to be told on any given day, what the rule was going to be to get in the courtroom. It was this combination of just arbitrary decisions about how things are going to be done, and then hands off. We're not going to decide anything logical. It's up on you guys to sort out things like how are you going to line up outside, and what's the rules of that whole situation going to be. So it's next level. Bev is not a good judge. She is not smart. She doesn't know the law. She doesn't care. But it's mainly, my read on Bev is mainly just she's a lazy bureaucrat. She's politically connected. She got into this position for the perks and for the prestige. She resents like hell having to work to actually earn some of that. But she doesn't have that, at least I don't see from my read. She doesn't have that drive like Gold does to literally like get enjoyment out of making everybody suffer in this process, like making it worse and painful, like,
and just a complete and total disregard for her role and doing it right. It was next level.
She's just got such terrible judgment is the thing that to me is remarkable about Bev, because she's not unconscious of the Court of Appeals and the potential that's out there, that they're going to review it. And you see it with these little comments that she makes from time to time, like with the verdict form when they're going through the charge structure. I was affirmed on that, or this one hasn't been reversed yet,
Yeah.
And so she is paying attention to it. But it's just her judgment from my perspective as the appellate lawyer of like, what should you be worried about in terms of a ruling that's going to stand up, and what should you not be worried about?
And this FBI one was a big one.
They don't compute. Yeah, they really. She just doesn't seem to me to get it when it comes to what is going to be opening up the door for somebody like me to come along and say, you made a huge mistake here and it had massive consequences and so forth.
So would you consider one of those? Go ahead, Runkle.
I feel like that's part of why she doesn't want, objection hearsay, but just objection.
Yeah.
Is because it allows her to sort of do the ruling at random thing.
Mm-hmm.
And later, on appeal, unless they've actually gone up and said, well, we need to approach, none of those objections are going to be anything that they could argue, because it'll be like, well, you said objection. What was the objection? Was it objection heresy? Because that's, and it's like, well, I rejected it on that basis.
Mm-hmm.
We actually need to know what these are, and it really provides her with this like layer of shielding for any sort of appellate decision.
Yep.
And sometimes it seems like she's just ruling based on like, have I ruled for this side in a while? Like,
right. Been a minute.
Right.
Because she just like, she'll get an expression, she'll be like, I'm going to allow it. And it's like,
I'll allow it.
I mean, her whole thing with her never really sustaining anything, or like just the way she inserted herself into her judicial rulings was so bizarre to me. Like it was like if she was going to sustain objection, I'm like, when she turns around and asks a witness, can you answer that? I'm like, what in the fuck is she doing? That is not how this thing works.
A principal judge might say that you can't like do objection hearsay, etc., because they are really fastidious about what the jury sees. And but the thing is that principal judge would have three responses. The three responses to objection would be, sustained, overruled, or approach.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
That's it.
Exactly.
That's it.
And that's all the jury would ever see.
And there wouldn't be all this side commentary, no comments, Mr. Jackson, just whatever, all this other stuff that's going on right in the presence of this jury that she's supposed to be so concerned about.
Yeah.
I'll allow it. And can you answer that is just so obnoxious.
It's so obnoxious. It drives me insane. Like,
but all you needed to say is if the objection was overruled or sustained.
Right.
To your point. Why are you asking them? Why are you asking? Why?
Right. Why
should they? The question to you, Your Honor, was should they answer it?
So when that objection comes up, it's almost always because it's a loaded question. It's either got facts that are not in evidence that are in it, or it's asking for hearsay. It's something that otherwise there's a foundational defect to it.
Right.
And so that's almost always why she's like, well, can you answer that? Because if you think like a lawyer, which nobody but the lawyers does, but if you think like a lawyer and you just focus on the wording of that question, and the wording of the question is, do you know XYZ? To a lawyer, you can know everything or nothing, depending on, the needs of the circumstance.
Right.
But they don't understand that nuance. And so maybe some of the experts will get it. We saw it with Rentschler when she tried it with him. He's like, no, that question doesn't make sense. I can't answer it. But other folks are not. You don't expect them to sit and parse. Well, do I know that? Do I not know that? I don't know. Can I answer that? It's just she should just sustain it as to the form and require him to re-ask it.
Yeah. Exactly.
What do you guys think about, we always say, like, as defense attorneys, you never object during a closing or an opening because
I never say
evidence.
That. I never say that.
I know, as an appellate lawyer.
Must object during closing when you are the defense lawyer, because the closing is like the opportunity It's rife with prosecutorial misconduct. It happens all the time. They always go out of bounds. They always misstate the facts. They always misstate the law. They always shift the burden of proof. They always do all of these things that they're not allowed to do. And if you, the defense attorney, aren't objecting to them doing that during closing, I have an extremely difficult time with it then on appeal, because you've waived the issue. So I have to meet the higher standard of like it's constitutional and a manifest injustice and like all these difficult things. If you had just objected at the time, then we'd be able to point out all this stuff that the prosecutor argued was not in evidence. These facts weren't in evidence. It's improper, taints the jury. I got a much better case. So no, I've never been in that position. Defense lawyers object during closing.
Well, we try not to object over the little things, but there seems to me a lot of things in that closing that needed objections. When he is lying to the jury, for example, he says, I just tried to get Wolf to admit that the arm, you have to do a calculation. Wolf said that, and he kept saying it. He kept saying, over. I've told you that, sir. You have to, there's a calculation to account for that. And Mr. Rentschler is going to explain that to you.
And Brennan kept saying, but then let's get back to my question. And my question is...
And then he would
I understand your opinion, sir, but let's get back to the question I asked.
Yeah, if you're done being an advocate, let's talk about my question.
I've actually I had a prosecutor who was acting like Brennan, and I kept objecting to the various, and eventually the judge had a remedy, and the remedy I thought was a very appropriate one, which was the Crown, I gets up to continue asking, and the judge is like, no, your cross-examination has concluded. If you are not able to conduct an appropriate cross-examination, it is concluded and you are done. And they're like, and that was, they wanted to appeal it. And then the appeal division got a hold of it and looked at it, and they said, there's no way we can defend the cross-examination that was attempted here. We don't want to make bad case law that this is, so they dumped it.
Wow.
But I mean, the degree to which he was willing to engage in some pretty clear errors was tremendous to me. Like, what kind of expert gets a request to preserve his things and then deletes? And I'm like,
exactly. Object. I screamed. I'm like, object.
I would have been on my feet.
Yeah.
And I mean, my principle is I'll let the little stuff go.
Right.
But if you do big stuff during a closing, I will absolutely get to my feet. And I've had judges tell me, sit down, Mr. Runkle, I'm not going to let you interrupt. But the fact that you were getting up to object, they're like, we have to come back to this now. And then you can say, this is wrong. This is wrong. And I mean, get the curative instruction, if nothing else.
Right.
Mr. Brennan, in his closing argument, told you that this witness, was given the order and then deleted the text messages. That is not correct. The correct sequence of events is that apparently he deleted text messages and then was given an order to preserve them, and they were not there at the time.
As a matter of course. Like, why would
Did you guys notice she gave them that little instruction before they even started the closing, which was, it was almost like she's anticipating. She already knows they're going to be misstating the facts, because she's like, I just want you to remind you that the lawyer's comments are not evidence. And so if anything they say differs from what you remember, it's your collective memory as a jury. So she had already washed her hands of curing any of these issues. She basically told them, go ahead and misstate the facts all you want. It's going to be on the jury to try to remember what happened.
And that's all I ever get. When I do object to misstate the facts, that's what the judge just says. What the lawyers are saying, every time I do it, they'll say that, repeat the same words. What the lawyers say here is not evidence. It's your memory that's the evidence. This is just the, blah, 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 blah. I've never gotten anyone to give a curative instruction like, what he just said was fucking wrong. He just lied to your ass, like Runkle said. But that was something very directly, clearly a lie that they could have pointed out. And there was a little burden shifting going on.
There was major burden shifting.
Oh,
I
yeah.
heard like a couple times. I'm sorry, in closing, there's like everybody has shortcuts during a trial, right? Every lawyer knows. You hear, oh, I was, this she said, or I was told, or whatever. You're instantly on your feet. Objection, hearsay. When the prosecutor is in closing and they say no, there's no evidence. You are on your feet right now, objecting because you have no burden to present any evidence at all. They do not get to shift like that.
Right.
Well, and when they say we don't know what happens, I mean, in a perfect world, courts everywhere, and I'm not just going to criticize
right now.
Yeah.
I'm not just going to criticize Judge Cannoni here because I don't know of any other judge that would do it either. But in a perfect world, when the prosecutor on close says, we don't know what happened here, the judge should just be like, okay,
case out.
I'm going to direct a verdict, jurors. The prosecutor has just formally admitted that we don't know what happens, and therefore an acquittal is the only result that you could return. And thank you for your service, jurors. I hope you found this to be as hilarious as I did, that the prosecutor just dunked on their own net. You know what? Because we're ending early, we're still going to get you lunch because we appreciate your,
Thank you for your time and effort.
Budget.
Do you think they renewed that motion on a sidebar or something? Because I didn't hear a motion for a directed finding at the end, and a motion on a verdict.
No, I think he argued.
They did, yeah.
Oh, they did.
They did.
He renewed it at the end, but it was very brief.
I don't think you were on the stream, babe, at that point.
He knew exactly what the judge would do with it.
Right.
Of course.
I mean, just gotta say the words.
Compelling as I thought two of the motions dismissed were, where I was pretty adamant if the judge was on the up and up, if all things being equal, even in a light most favorable to the Commonwealth, two of them should have been granted because they were irremediable. Like, to me, and speaking of which, in terms of the curative instruction that she decided to give on the fucking hoodie, I mean, were you guys losing your mind on that shit? Like, she cured nothing with that instruction.
I don't know that I would have granted the motion to dismiss.
Right.
But I would have been like, Brennan, you are going to get a curative instruction that you are going to feel. And you might have some difficulty sitting down for the next week after this curative. And I don't want to hear you say boo about it.
Right.
So, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you have just seen Mr. Brennan present a shirt, and he suggested to this witness that these holes could have been caused by road rash. That suggestion was false, and it was inappropriate. Mr. Brennan knew that these holes were caused by the ME. There is no way that these could be road rash because these holes were caused at a known date that is after the alleged collision. Nevertheless, he made the decision to suggest that to you, and I want to disabuse you in the strongest terms of drawing any inference that this could possibly be road rash, because that was false, it was incorrect, and it was inappropriate. Jurors, because when you just say, I
would have loved that
happened
instruction. I would have been fine. I would have been like, oh, well, thank you. Finally.
Yeah. And I mean, at that point, you've got jurors going,
right.
But instead, the curative was like this little throwaway, like, and the juror was probably sitting there like, sorry, I missed it. Somebody farted and I couldn't hear you over the fart. And the fart was actually longer than your curative. So
we saw a lot of, I think, the curtain being pulled back over the last few days of trial, and the lack of interest in the curing the misconduct was really just one of those, because to me that was such a big throwback to the pretrial motion to dismiss the great, the prosecutorial misconduct, and how that didn't even raise an eyebrow in terms of maybe we should ask some questions about why did we get so many different stories about this Sally Port video, and who did in fact have it, and how did it end up stuck in Proctor's file for all this time. And Mr. Lally, you certified that you did a diligent search for everything that was discoverable, and you didn't produce this. What's the explanation for that? There's no curiosity at all when it comes to sorting out the Commonwealth misconduct. And to me, that's been like we all know there's like no big reveal that Bev is biased here, but to me, it just really showed the operation of it. Look, she's lazy. She doesn't want to work. She likes her shortcuts, and the Commonwealth is right. It is a shortcut that works for her. It's very easy for her. Those are her friends. Those are the people that she has to deal with all the time in court. It makes it very easy for if we just go along with the Commonwealth and things would go smoothly and we wouldn't have to work so hard. It's because you, the defense, are in here kicking and putting up resistance. That's what's making this so difficult for everybody. We're having to work on the weekends, all of that stuff.
Stay past
It just
4.
reveals the attitude so clearly.
Yeah, and that was something that Bob and I were screaming about with the inverted video. How in the hell does Hank just say the words, "It was inverted before, here's another video"? Where is the paperwork that this thing was repaired? Where is one inverted video that was tendered to another lawyer, produced in discovery, shown in court, or has the metadata still that predated this? We never saw. She didn't even have a hearing on it. She just let him say it was inverted. If you inverted that one, who's the fuck to say you didn't just invert that other one? Like, show me one you produced.
It was what he does all the time. He just says shit, and there was no requirement by Canoni for him to prove anything up ever, and that was the most disturbing thing. And to your point, Andrea, like the fact
Your Honor,
is
I will get to the DNA evidence. Never
like,
gets the DNA evidence.
Yeah.
All these dudes, including Yannetti, who's a Massachusetts lawyer, are all strangers in a strange land in that courthouse. And they were treated as such. And to your point, Andrea, all those people that are in that courtroom, aside from Brennan, obviously, but Lally, McLaughlin, they're there every day. She's like, these are, like you said, these are her people. These are who she brushes shoulders with constantly. And her just complete lack of any kind of comeback adds to the Commonwealth as to anything that they were doing. Like we all say it all the time. We're like, where's her grave concern with respect to, but even not like, I'll take anything even below a grave concern, just
Any concern.
Mild curiosity would I'm so curious. I mean, anything would have happened. It was crazy to me. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
On it, potentially criminal says, and she's talking about Karen here. Every single second, things get quiet in her mind. The fact that she is staring, that this is staring her down, jumps into the forefront of her thoughts. This grinds down people. Most assuredly. And 100%. From one of your viewers, KD Cat, has her driver's license been suspended for 3 years? Does that count towards an OUI possible conviction time served? No, right? As far as you know,
I don't know how Massachusetts law works, but typically not. Like typically, it might serve against like any license suspension that she would get ordered as
not even in Illinois. It wouldn't.
Not here.
Well, that's the Secretary of State. It's completely different operate.
Okay.
You know, it's
So we have two things in Washington. Like you'll have court initiated stuff, and you'll have Department of Licensing doing its own thing. But if they both suspend you for the same DUI, they'll end up running concurrent. So, I mean, maybe something like that. But generally, unless you are getting subject to some kind of restriction that's sort of equivalent to confinement, a restriction on your liberty, you're on home detention, you're wearing an ankle bracelet, you have a curfew, you have to, report to where you're allowed to be and so forth, then generally it's not pretrial restraint is not considered the same kind of, incarceration that being in jail pretrial is. So it's like, thanks for the 3 years that you just, spent not being able to live your life normally. But it's not something that you get any credit for.
Yes, exactly. Here. And David James says in New York, they can't even charge DUI when they don't test within an hour of arrest. Don't ask me how I know that. They've got to test within an hour here too, right, babe? That hour is a thing for a lot of places.
Yeah, post arrest. They're required to retest when they get back at the station. I think it's 90 minutes here in Illinois.
We have 2 hours in Washington.
Yeah. Jay Coop over from
it's complicated here.
Yes, sounds like it.
I mean, you all hate drinking and driving up there. That is very, very clear. I bet, like, I'm curious, like, what is the amount of DUI fatalities up there? Is it super low because the harshness?
I don't
of the
think it's that much
penalties?
lower, honestly. It's I don't know. I mean, I have very little faith that the criminal justice system actually accomplishes much in terms of, saving lives or anything
Deterrence?
like that in a
Yeah.
larger
Justice,
sense.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Because I mean, a lot of the fatalities are from people who are on like their 5th driving ban.
Mhm.
And so it's like, and they may have even done some time for it. Like their 2nd impaired, they did, a month. Their 3rd, they did 3 months. Their 4th, they did 6 months. And their 5th, they did a year. And, they get released. And what do? They have a big I'm out of jail party.
Mhm.
And they drink
Get
heavily.
hammered.
They get in a car and then they, wipe somebody out on the road, right? It's whereas a lot of the people who we actually are catching are people who are like, they're just over the limit and you would never have detected them but for testing and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right.
And I don't know how much we're actually solving with that, but I mean, maybe some. I'm not really sure, but I'm not going to say like stop doing the enforcement or anything. I'm just not really sure that it actually accomplishes as much as we'd like it to do. So,
Yeah.
I mean, to me, there is no more disproportionately punished crime than the DUI in our country in general, in
In our
terms of,
country, you got 10 years from the
I mean,
first.
well, yeah, I mean, but
well,
I'm
nobody's
saying, like,
ever gotten 10 years for the first. Like it's a theoretical possibility,
because
but
we're
nobody's ever
talking about a
received it.
misdemeanor here, and in terms of the punishment that is meted out with DUIs, even on supervision, like in supervision, again, like here, that's what we call it when it's like delayed prosecution. It's wherein, if you take care of the things that are agreed to in the plea deal, they drop the case at the end and you don't get the
It
conviction.
counts on your driving record. If you get another, it's
Right.
a
It never
second,
goes away on there.
but
Right. It
Mm.
never goes
you
away
don't
there.
get
But
convicted.
it's just disproportionate to every other misdemeanor that exists in terms of the amount of punishment they mete out with DUIs. And, I guess I give MAD a lot of credit for that. I mean, I think it was their lobby, like Mothers Against Drug Driving, that really went in and started hammering in, like, kind of nationally, like these laws where they're really hammering in. Because, I mean, what other case can you think of wherein they were able to skirt due process by increasing the penalty in terms of a summary suspension, wherein you're automatically, if you refuse to blow in Illinois, you're not suspended 6 months, which is by the board. If you refuse to blow, you're automatically suspended for a year, and it's based just on a sworn statement by a cop, and that's it. And that's done by the Secretary of State. So they've completely snaked around due process of the law with just this, like, and every one of them reads the exact same. Every sworn statement I've ever seen, it's like they're taught the exact language. Oh, it's slurred speech. It's glassy eyes.
Bloody, watery eyes, odor of intoxicants.
That's it.
Right.
It's
On
the
his
same
breath.
shit.
Well, here in Canada, they've changed the law so that they can demand you provide a breath sample for no reason at all. They don't need any indicia of impairment or of even consumption. They pulled you
Wow.
over. And I'm concerned because I've got asthma and I'm like, I don't know how this goes if I have to blow in the thing. But the penalties for refusal to provide a sample are lockstep to the penalties for if you blow over. So
Wow.
if you
Wow.
refuse to provide a sample in a case where somebody died, then you face the same punishment as if you blew over in a
Wow.
situation where somebody
Wow.
died. So it can be pretty serious.
That's crazy.
And
Man.
so,
Stay out
as
of
a lawyer, your
Canada.
advice is always blow. Like you gotta.
Yeah, blow. Andrea, J. Coop wants to know, should we be worried if there's no verdict yet?
I wouldn't be worried. I'm not worried. I didn't expect anything today, guys. That's why, I woke up, I slept in this morning. It was great. I slept all the
Yeah.
way in for like
Glorious.
the luxury hour of like 5:30 or something. And, have a nice slow morning. I spend some time with my trees, all this good stuff. It's wonderful because nothing's happening, guys, and I know nothing's going to happen. And I check in on Twitter every once in a while because, of course, Twitter is like breaking news now. It's just where you get it anymore.
Yep.
And nothing's happening, and I see the mood. I see the mood. I understand people are nervous, people are anxious, people think it's very easy and it should be very fast. But I never expected a verdict today. My prediction was really always that they're going to take at least a day to just go through everything before they even really start talking about what do they think and where do they want to go with it. This has been a long trial, guys. It's a lot of evidence. Juries take their job very seriously. They want to get it right. They want to be diligent. They don't want to just come in and half-ass it. It deserves more than that.
100%. I agree. I think like my kind of estimation was tomorrow, right around lunch, I think would be what I consider for the length of this trial to be an appropriate amount of time for them to go on through a majority of the evidence together in terms of deliberations. And if it starts getting towards the end of the day tomorrow, then I'm starting to think we got a battle going on back there, but like in terms of just doing the work, which all lawyers want them to do the work. We want them to do the work. Because like I saw Carl Steinbeck was like, God, they're gonna be back at the end of the day on Friday. I'm like, what?
No.
Prediction, dude.
Yeah, we all want that, but as far as a prediction, it's just not likely. You can't bet on that. So
I knew there wasn't going to be anything Friday because even if they all walked in and were like, we are absolutely sure she's not guilty, right? And everybody nods, they'd be like, okay. There is no way we're walking right out here and, in the face of the family and so forth and delivering a verdict in 6 minutes. It's just not happening. And,
Andrea,
there are juries who've been interviewed who have said, like, literally, we just sat there for a while because we thought that we should not come out right away. I would be shocked if we get anything before lunch, because even if they get a verdict at 9 a.m., they're going to wait and hold out for their free lunch.
And I'm thinking we got to get a question before we get a verdict. I don't know why I feel like that. And I know
Allie wants her questions. Like she demands questions. She wants questions. Andrea, I was trying to remember, didn't we have a similar circumstance with Alan, like on the first day of deliberations? Didn't they call it short because they didn't want to get into because we were all, that was the first day, right? Am I remembering that correctly? Where they went back kind of like later mid-afternoon.
Yeah, they did. It was like 3:30 or something. They called a short into the day. And then I think they went the whole next day without anything. And then it was after that we started getting the questions, and that's where the unease starts to bubble up about what's going on here and why is it so difficult.
So did you guys think it was defense attorney Meow says with Brennan stealing AJ's closing from last time, is that done? I've never seen it happen before. We always see them pick something that we say in that closing. That's almost every time I say something, I try to remember to be like, and I know they're going to get up and try and take this sentence that I've said. And I always forget to do it somehow, like to try and rip that away from them. But they do that all the time. Whatever I used as my like tagline in my closing, but so odd that he built his closing around last time's closing. Don't you think?
We see that more often here because we have more retrials because the prosecutors can appeal a conviction here.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
And so you'll see them do things like clearly prepare for your last trial. And sometimes it gets funny because you get some prosecutors can pivot, some prosecutors cannot pivot. And I had a prosecutor argue extensively that there was no evidence of my client's alibi, notwithstanding the fact that between trial 1 and trial 2, we'd found 2 actual independent alibi witnesses who were able to testify. And it was just like, you completely missed that this is a different trial, right? So it's not super unusual to me.
Mhm.
Yeah, but he
If
did
you've got
seem
the
to miss it this time because he focused a lot on like that whole look away. I guess he
Look the
was
other way. Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
He straight up cribbed the look the other way, and it was just for me. It summed up the Darvo prosecution. We're gonna just turn around. We're gonna steal what the defense does and appropriate it. We're gonna accuse the defense of all the bad stuff that we do. And so forth. Hey, the Sharpie S gel with the blue is in fact my favorite. I just accidentally grabbed a box of the black, and so I was stuck with those for like my last few days of trial. It was heartbreaking, but it's okay. I soldiered through it.
Thanks, Martha. Thanks, Martha. Brad Blankenship says, if Karen is acquitted, could lawsuits be impending? If so, against who? I'll let either one of you go.
Proctor is the main target. We went through we went through on the last week of the stream on my channel. We went through the Ninth Circuit Court has this wonderful 1983 outline that they produced. It's one of those things where the staff attorneys have gone and created like a manual, like everything you would need to know about how to sue the government for depriving you of your rights. And it's actually really everything you'd want to know about how you can't do that, right? There's a law that says that you can, but there's 250 pages of this outline with all the case law that tells you why and how you can't. But anyway, so we went through a lot of that the last couple of weeks of trial. And this was mainly why, because the first thing that you have to show if you were prosecuted after some kind of action that is a deprivation of your civil rights, you have to show termination favorable to you, the claimant. And so it doesn't necessarily have to be acquittal, but it just can't result in a prosecution. So if she walks away with an acquittal, that element is met. It just kind of also maybe goes to show a little bit about some of the urgency to try to get her on something, to try to get her convicted on something to preserve
she gets the
an
OUI,
argument
she
that,
can't sue on that
yep,
basis.
exactly. Take away the lawsuit.
Yeah.
And there have been cases where that has been something like trivial, like, okay, we can't get you on like the murder of a police officer, but we can get you on spray painting a wall. So
Right.
it's like, okay, great.
Nick Starrow says physics is not a conspiracy theory. If any still say there was a collision, prove physics wrong, go outside, flap your arms, and see if you can fly.
Or better yet, just blast off into outer
Blast
space.
off into outer
Yeah.
space.
But first you got to paint those arms blue because
Right. Got to be blue first. Beagle Rescue's mom from your channel, Andrea, says, I think I remember from first trial, the lesser included were mandatory.
So they're not mandatory. They are optional. I was able to verify that. It's just that they seem to have a lot of discretion that everybody can ask for them. And there's no real recourse. If you don't want them and they give them anyway, it's like a too bad, so sad. So I don't think that they're mandatory, but for practical purposes, they may treat them that way, or maybe Bev treats them that way.
I've never had a judge. I've never even looked into whether a judge can do it here because I've never had a judge say.
We have different law on this in Washington where the judge is getting very much out of the judicial role to instruct on a lesser included that is not that's not requested by one of the parties. If either party requests it and the standards met, then you have a right to it. But the judge doesn't get to just decide themselves in spite of like the theory and the strategy and everything of the parties that I'm going to go ahead and do this regardless of what they think.
Yeah, I've never seen that. I've never
All
seen
right,
that.
y'all. It sounds like and there's nothing to be read into it, but it's there people are saying the defense team is headed back to court.
Yeah.
And it's 4 o'clock, so I'm guessing that everybody's being brought in to send everybody
Calling
home
it a
as
day,
opposed to a
right.
verdict.
And I got the Court TV's got the camera outside. So I'm looking at that right now.
I do also want to mention, because I know I've seen a lot of comments going through about there's no court on Thursday because it's Juneteenth. It's a federal holiday. And I think there was some confusion about court on Friday or not. Sue O'Connell is saying, according to court staff, there will be court on Friday. So hopefully it won't matter because we'll be done by then, but just in case.
Right. So but there is no court on Thursday, right?
No court on Thursday.
You
Okay.
might see some pressure to come to a verdict like Wednesday evening because they might be
Yeah.
like, we want to be done by,
Right.
Mhm.
for the days off. And if it would be even more so if Friday wasn't going to be a court day.
That's
Yeah.
true. Hope says, love this panel and Allie and Bob so cute together. Thank you. Free Karen.
Aw.
Oh, imagine you guys in person. Like in person, it's so adorable. You like almost choke up a little bit.
Aw, that's
Aw,
so
you're so
sweet. From
All right.
Andrea's.
One question I've been asking everybody. Do you guys think that they dirtied Proctor up enough for not having called him?
Yeah, I think they did a
Yep.
genius job. And I was kind of saying from the beginning, as soon as it wasn't clear that the defense was going to call him, I'm like, I love that. I love the invisible boogeyman, that you can just project anything you want to on him. All they have are the texts and just the attitude, the decision making, the choices. There's no explanation for any of it, no justifying any of it. You've got this surrogate that they've put up on the stand with Yuri, who is
Why that little gift would have been just a sprinkle of gift
right.
to his wife Tess mentioned earlier.
But that's the thing. If you put him on the stand, then the jury is asking, well, here's this real person, this real flesh and blood person. And what do I think of them? And would they really do that? And people just tend to be disinclined to believe that about other people. It's much easier to think about something you've imagined up. So I loved that call. I thought they handled that extremely well.
All right.
I think they got what they needed to. The only one, like I mentioned before, that was like, oh, I hate leaving that on the table is the gift one.
Right.
But they had so much already with just the bias and the decision making, the cutting corners, the weird shady shit with the why not just put this stuff in evidence. I mean,
Right. Exactly.
What do you think, Bob? Did they dirty him up enough?
I'll let Runkle go first, and then I'll get in. I'll jump in.
I was initially not super thrilled with the decision not to call him, and I've really come around on that one, and especially because watching the way Brennan was cross-examining like Deaver and so forth, which was basically Brennan testifies and then gets the witness to go, yes, and then Brennan testifies some more and then gets the witness to say, yep, that too. Brennan would have done a real job at, A, humanizing Proctor, B, explaining everything away. I think it would have been a mistake to call Proctor. And as the sort of mystery boogeyman, they've got his texts, and his texts are going to look bad. And they may see the other stuff in the text that they might go, because they didn't cover every text, but they put in a whole bunch of texts, and they might be sitting there going, the one thing I thought that they should have done in the closing was to note, you've seen his texts, and they are so bad that his best friend was sitting in court and would not repeat them.
Wouldn't read them.
His best friend would not allow those words to come out of his mouth because
They're so bad that
foul.
even the prosecutor turns out didn't have the balls to go ahead
say the
and
C
read
word.
the text of your own lead investigator. You didn't even have the balls to say it, what he said.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
No, for sure.
So my thought, same, but for me, kind of my light bulb moment in terms of you can't put Proctor on definitively is when Hank crossed Barrows. Like, so, because I said it on our channel, I'm like, all right, as soon as, because Barrows, dude's a Dighton cop, he's independent, he's got no reason to come in there to lie. The guy's like on the up and up, he's what you want cops to be. He's just coming in there seemingly as truthful as the day is long. And Hank did a nice job doing, dirtying him up a little bit in terms of his memory and his recollection. And I'm like, at that point, I'm like, all right. I said, this is a guy who lives for crossing cops, as all defense attorneys do. We love to cross cops. And Ian, to your point, when you know that Hank is going to take advantage of being able to create whatever narrative he wants about Proctor in terms of trying to rehabilitate him as much as he can he's going to do it. And
Correct.
he would have created any kind of story he wanted. It made it impossible for them to put him on. And I agree, Andrea. I think that there was enough done with Proctor. I think that the most powerful text, as much as I agree with both of you guys on the gift thing, that's a tasty little tidbit that's really hard to explain that I would love to have gotten in there. But the she's fucked is powerful. He's a Boston cop. He's going to be fine. Powerful shit. And then you stick him behind the Lexus in the Sally Port, like a weird specter back there. You know, you get it out that the guy had his hand on every piece of evidence. You have it that he's got pieces of, collected evidence in his car for months. Yeah, like you got a lot in there that was really, really powerful. And I think that Alan, I agree, Andrea. I think that they're playing it kind of like Spielberg does. I always make this analogy Spielberg did with Jaws in the first half of the movie. You didn't see that fucking shark and you didn't need to. You were terrified of that beast. Yeah. Because they gave you enough to know that you should be afraid of it. And I feel that it's the same thing with Proctor. And I hope that it hits home because he's the X factor. As much as I didn't want them to bring up the conspiracy and at the level that they did the first trial, because I thought the science was that powerful. I thought like why murky it up with creating this quasi de facto burden for yourself and having to prove this conspiracy when you have this exceptionally powerful evidence, and just let the jury come to their own conclusions on it by what they've led them to. I thought they did a masterful job with that. I think that they laid that foundation for the jury to make those conclusions on their own. And I'm just hoping that it sunk in, but I have no reason to think that it won't, because I thought Alan's closing, in all honesty, was a masterpiece. I really did. And it's like, I'm a law dork, so I'm sitting there like on the edge of my yoga ball, just sitting there like, it's amazing. I mean, then within like 3 minutes of Hank's shit, I'm looking at my phone. Like, to me, that's the litmus test. Like I was riveted by Alan and his closing and Hank, and I didn't want to look away from Hank. I really wanted to be riveted by his shit because I was fascinated. Like we were talking about this. I'm like, I can't wait to see how this guy's going to handle this shit show that he's put on. Like, how is he going to me, like from a purely legal perspective, I'm like, man, I can't wait to see what he's going to try to do. Is he going to be able to direct this turd? And, so like, he couldn't do it, man.
Yeah. Well, I
thought Alan struggled a bit in the first third, but then he was so good for the remaining 2/3 of his close that by the end of it, I was sitting there going, I remember there was a bunch of stuff I didn't like in the first third, and I actually had to go back and rewatch it to figure out, like, why was I thinking that? Because he did such a good job of, like, once he gets into his stride, and I think that the weakest part was, Higgins and showing us the video of the grab ass. And I was going, yeah, this isn't really landing to me because I don't see this as like, I see this
incriminating. It's not incriminating. Like, guys do that kind of thing. It's not that big a deal.
Constantly.
It was more suspicious at the door when they were leaving. It was like, at least there was something there. Like, it seemed like a little angst, and like he grabbed him by the arm. Like there was something there, but but we had a friend who's a lawyer, and he said he found that fake wrestling very suspicious.
Allie, I would have said something along the lines of, this kind of horseplay can turn into a real fight real fast. Because the number of times I've seen situations where people are at a bar and they're having fun and they're, joshing each other and then
sparring.
Yeah.
Well, and then suddenly, like, they're sitting there, they're doing this, and suddenly somebody accidentally, because they're super sauced, is going to throw a fake punch, but he boops the guy on the nose. And then the other guy's like, what? And then now they're, now people are getting punched.
Gets a little too enthusiastic with the abdominal thrusting. And he's like, what? I'm not your mom. What did you think I am here? And
no. Now we need to bring this up. Hold on.
Like they put that shit to shame. It would be
wait, Bob.
Convicted of everything. If you saw pictures of me and my friends when we're hanging around, and I'm talking about my dude, like like Gara and the crew. It's insane. We can't keep our hands off each other. It's constant like headlocks and like all kinds of shit. And it's like, and I'm a 55-year-old man. I'm too
you
old
guys
for
are
that
crazy.
shit. And it still never ends.
When
It's
Andrea says the words thrust, I'm sorry, Bob. I needed to cut you off immediately. I have never laughed so hard when Andrea said,
Oh, that.
yeah,
yeah,
we
that
know
was
we know
phenomenal.
about thrusting, Brennan, and we wish your mother didn't do it. I was like, oh my God. No,
yeah, that
she
was
didn't.
that one got clipped. That
that
one made it
was
to the
so
Twitterverse.
good.
It was
Look,
great.
if he's gonna feed me up a softball like that, I'm gonna swing at it. Okay.
That was awesome. But there was a couple things that I thought was missing from Alan's closing that I would have liked to see focus on a little more, like the length of the drive to One Meadows, and that, you know, like the longer that they want to keep pushing out his last movement, the shorter the drive is for her to get there. And we kind of talked about that. The key cycles, you know, Hank didn't even touch them.
No
That
one
was
touched
his
him.
whole case. But
Yeah.
like, I still think there was something there. But Higgins' car parked. I understand that there were two witnesses who said it wasn't there, but at least there was the one who said it was. And I wish that would have been something they could have gotten in. I mentioned that earlier, but there was at least something there he could have used from Jen McCabe saying that the car was parked there.
That's a tough
Mhm.
one though, the Higgins cheap one, just because I thought Maxon was so
I know.
believable. Like I just
Yeah,
like
sure.
out of everybody they put on the stand, like she just really struck me as an earnest, truthful person who like I don't know how that plays out. Like I guess like from the defense side of it, we don't really care.
Well,
as
then I
long
just
as
wish Higgins would have got, like, they could have called Higgins just for that. But I understand Andrea's goes right to Andrea's point. He's better as an unseen boogeyman.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but when
And-
he shows up at trial and the jurors like Karen said that guy is hot, like no, no, sorry, guilty. Like they're
it diminishes her
you
credibility
don't
because she
She's out
assessed
the
him as
door.
hot.
right.
But so one thing I didn't like, so when AJ argued that the glass came from inside the house, that when the police came and he wasn't wearing a jacket and they had a glass that could have come from the kitchen, I think he should have clarified there, because the police didn't know yet. They didn't know yet that John O'Keefe had brought a glass, because then Brennan was able to flip it around and make it seem like, even though that's not what the defense was saying, that the defense was trying to pull the wool over the jury's eyes when the glass came, when John O'Keefe actually brought the glass. So I wish he
Mhm.
would have just clarified that right there and been like, at that time, they didn't know yet that the glass came from the bar. They should have been asking to get in.
100%. Because what is your inference if
Mhm.
somebody's found with a glass near them in front of a house? Like, I
Right.
mean, like, without knowing anything about what happened the night preceding, like your natural instinct is to be like, well, clearly he was in the house, right? I mean,
I
Right.
guess I'm the only person whose first instinct was, where the fuck is the rest of the glass? Where's the rest of the glass? Where's the rest of the glass?
Right.
Where is it?
Been saying
And the
same
thing is
Where is
that
it?
actually
If it's not on the front yard, isn't that why we should be going to look in the house? Where is
Yes.
that
it?
actually probably would have been enough to get the warrant too. Like when they say we couldn't have gotten a warrant, because they're
Mhm.
like, we found a partial broken glass, and we believe that there
shoe,
may
no
be
hat.
evidence of the remainder of the
coat.
glass or similar glasses found
Mhm.
inside the house. I've
Mhm.
seen warrants granted on, we just want to see if this glass matches the other drinking glasses that are found in the house,
Right.
because if
There's
they're
a
the
knife
same,
found in the driveway. We need to go see if they've got similar knives in the home.
Similar
Exactly.
cutlery.
Right.
Yep.
Yep.
And so I think they could have gotten the warrant on that,
Mhm.
and then, go in, have a look. We're only allowed to look for anything that could hold a glass or a fragment of a glass.
Right.
It's like,
And that was
While
the
you're
point.
in there, you're gonna see or hear a dog.
Right.
Don't mind
yeah.
us breaking their clothes.
But that's what the defense's point was. And then Hank was able to twist it around to make it seem like the defense was trying to hide the fact, or make it seem like that glass didn't come from the bar, when they all saw him walk out with it from the bar. And then I didn't like that he insisted she didn't say I hit him. Just say it. Who cares? Even if she said I hit him, it doesn't mean anything. You heard the trauma response. Like I didn't like just don't say she absolutely didn't say I hit him and she only said did I hit him. Just say.
And Brennan did an excellent job eliciting that trauma response thing. If you assume that he was working for the defense team, right? If he's on the prosecution, then that was a real fuck up.
The defense would have never been able to get that in, ever, ever. He really
never in a million years,
right in his own ass with that one.
I loved that moment because that to me, that was the moment when Dr. Russell really blossomed now into an expert witness. You are now officially an expert. You have handed the prosecutor their own ass when they came at you with something that was unexpected and you were on it. You turned it around. You got that win. That's the mark of a good expert. We saw Rentschler jump on that. We saw La Posada jump on that. They're old hats. They've testified a million times.
Man, I love
that was her like birth moment.
Right. And Hank was trying so hard to not to be the opposite of the defense and let them just say things. She said, I'll answer you if you want. He should have said, we'll save that for your, but he said, go ahead.
Yeah.
And he did that every time he did that. And he shouldn't have. He got his ass handed to him because he was trying to show I'm letting the experts answer the questions. Well, you're also fucking your own case.
You really shouldn't do that. Like it's rule 101 in trial. You never
Especially
let the opposing witness explain. Never let them explain.
She said, I can answer that if you want. I mean, she told him, you don't want me to say this. And he said, go for it.
Yeah.
The way I always explain this to like new lawyers when I'm is never ask a question that where the answer could hurt you. And so there are times when I want a witness to explain, and that is when they're on their like fourth version of events this trial. I'm like, please explain. Like
the floor is yours.
I had a trial where the prosecutor objected because I asked the complainant to, I just was like, can we take it back to the beginning and tell the story again? And they're like, objection, he's done this like 4 times. And the judge is like, and he's this old sort of crotchety guy, but he's like, while the questions are repetitive, I think Mr. Runkle is entitled to keep asking until the answers become repetitive.
Yeah.
And get a consistent answer to his consistent question.
That was like subtle hint, prosecutor, you're not winning this one.
No, you're not. But then my other issue was, well, first of all, the hydraulics, the extra 2 inches. I thought that needed to be focused on more, that the whole blueprint was just off. But the big one for me was the arm. I thought it was a perfect opportunity for Alan Jackson to set Brennan up and say, what about Brennan asking Wolf over and over again about the arm weight, the 50% arm weight that his own expert used. His own expert used it. He tried to convince you. He tried to impeach that witness. He tried to make him seem not credible for using the same weight percentage that his expert used and that you heard Rentschler explain is standard. There is a formula built in to do it. And I bet you he's going to get up here after this and try and tell you again how Wolf was wrong because he couldn't answer why he used the 50% arm.
But the thing is, Welcher used 2 dummies in his testing. Right. So you have to address the second dummy as well.
So those were the couple of things that, to me, but obviously, he did a great closing. And Andrew Hansen from your channel thinks Dean Winters from All-Star Chaos Guy should play AJ.
Oh, so he's the chaos guy. He's the dude. He was in a couple of flicks that I really liked from back in the 90s. It was like maybe the Brothers McMullen. Like I always liked him, and he kind of like drifted.
They're in the courthouse.
All right, I'm pulling it up.
Happening.
Pulling it up.
I got it up. It's right there.
Where? Oh, sorry.
Well, now it went away.
My fault. All right. We're back.
Let's see if we can make us on the sides. So
she's got her White Claws at the ready.
See, it's still humid over there in Massachusetts.
Thick.
All right, jurors, we appreciate how hard you've worked today. It's been a long day. I'm going to send you home. So I do have to give you those cautions. Please do not discuss this case with anyone. Don't do any independent research or investigation into the case. If you happen to see, hear, or read anything about the case, please disregard it and let us know. Be careful with your social media use. And I think what's a good idea to do is when you leave here, just leave the case here. Literally, figuratively, just clear your heads. Beautiful day. Get some fresh air, and we'll see you tomorrow. Okay?
Have a White Claw.
All right, so
Man,
Well, there you go. There you go.
not even a question.
Not
Not even a-
unexpected.
No.
Not unexpected.
I think it was totally expected.
Yeah. Let it play just in case she's got something to say to the.
She's not
Lawyer.
saying shit. She's running to her claws in her chambers.
I think we might see something happen tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at too. That's where
Yeah.
I'm at too.
Right when I'm in court, I got to be in court an hour away at 1:30.
Hey, it's either that or while we're at Great
All right.
America for
So we'll see everybody tomorrow morning, okay?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right.
I kind of hope we don't get a verdict tomorrow, though, because I have a thing tomorrow evening.
Yeah, that kind of hurts the recap.
Yeah, I've got a, what is it? I do fundraising for like every year for the children's hospital, and they're like, please come out to a dinner to say thank you. And it's like, I can't blow that off. That's not, that would not be a good idea. So yeah.
Hold on, I'm moving.
You can't be like, you mean the
Alessi's
tens of
flexing.
thousands I raised for you last year wasn't enough for you people?
Well, it's actually kind of funny because they have a challenge coin for the Stollery Children's Hospital, and the highest level they have on it is a 10,000 coin. And they're like, we're gonna need to do another one of these because
We need the Runkle coin. The Runkle coin.
Yes, the Runkle coin.
Yeah,
I'm up to a
Should have it.
$250,000 at this point. For
Yeah, I mean you're pretty epic, dude. So like here, this is the one thing that it was probably my biggest criticism, but I was thrilled that he brought it up because I thought it was such a huge, to me, it was low key one of the biggest pieces of evidence that came in terms of his argument was the fact that if the diffuser is cracked, that light does not illuminate at all. And I would have liked to have seen him beef that up just a little bit because it's determinant. The Commonwealth can't have it both ways. You can't have that thing shattered in the front lawn of 34 Fairview and then have that taillight illuminating at 5:07 in the morning or whenever the hell she's leaving John's house. You can't have both things because
I mean, the
light
thing I
doesn't
really
work.
wish that they'd done the video clip where Brennan is like, and stop.
Yeah.
And then it's like,
Oh, no, wait,
you know,
back up.
don't-
No, wait,
don't you see
not
a whole
there,
bunch
not
of white
there,
here?
back up.
I would have liked them to be like, okay, we're going to go through frame by frame. Red, 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 white, red, red, red. Okay, so Mr. Brennan clearly stopped it on the only white frame in this because it's when you actually watch it like in slow motion and you watch it go through, it's pretty clear that it's a red tail light that catches a reflection of something, probably a house light, and that makes it look white briefly, but you can see red before, you can see red after, and I'm like, this is highly misleading.
Yeah.
And I would have loved to see the lawyers go, well, let's you agree that 2 frames before it's red, right? And you agree that 6 frames after it's also red, right?
Yeah. No.
So
Agreed.
But if the diffuser's cracked, it's black. There is no illumination at all. Not red, not white, no nothing. And it's like that Be in Trouble 31 when he did the testing, that was what clued me in on it. And that was what I was begging for the first time. Like, I didn't realize until I knew that ARCA couldn't do any additional testing because I'm like, why are they showing us how this? Because, LEDs, man, it's a whole different beast. There is no glass in there. It's like them interchanging glass and plastic was irritating the shit on me. Both sides did it a little bit, but there is no glass in that taillight anywhere. It's all plastic, all of it. But to me, that it's such a powerful point because there is a gap. They got into it. They're talking about, from the cover, the red cover to where the diffuser is, there's an inch there for that kind of shattering. To have that thing be found in that lawn wherein they're showing you, and it's the clear plastic piece with the little bumps, the thing that Lally opined maybe caused the scratches on John's arm in the first trial. You can't have that be in the lawn, because if it's in the lawn at that point in time, then that right passenger tail light is not illuminating at all.
I don't know how it gets to the lawn, no matter what, under any circumstances, under any scenario, how the inner.
Well, and that to me, there were like the things that the defense didn't talk about in closing that I would have liked to have seen more. We're a little bit about the law enforcement story in this, the investigation, this evidence, how it appears, where it appears. Okay, we heard that of all of the taillight pieces that were collected, Ashley Valier went and did the reconstruction, and she's able to put 23 of those pieces of taillight back together onto Karen's. So what are the other 24 pieces then that you found on the on the lard? I want to hear about the missing taillight. Tell me about the missing taillight, okay? Because that has no business being anywhere on the grass. That just reminds us, okay, all of this went through Yuri and Proctor's hands, and it went through Yuri and Proctor's hands while they are unsupervised on their own, not, being accountable to anybody or anything. Let's talk about some of the other stuff that has just gotten weird when law enforcement gets a hold of it. Like, I don't know, the Ring camera video that should have Karen leaving that morning with Jen and Carrie, and that's mysteriously missing, and it should have her leaving that afternoon for Dayton. And that is also mysteriously missing. And then there's the Sallyport video with the mysterious 43 minutes missing off of the video. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more focus on those types of details, because no, we're not going to go into the nitty gritty of the argument of the conspiracy and the cover up to nearly the extent we did the last trial, but we want the jury to be asking those questions themselves. I mean, ideally, that's going to be the most persuasive process, is the one where it crosses the jury's mind independently. Okay. You don't have to tell them maybe somebody planted it. If it occurs to them, wait a minute, there's all this plastic on the taillight that doesn't belong there. And there's all this video that's gone missing. And Proctor's over here in the group text talking about how, the girl's fucked and the the guy's not going to get any problem because he's a Boston cop. Are these like some dirty cops that are planting stuff in evidence dependent on here and going in and deleting things that don't work with their case? Like, you want the jury to be thinking along that mindset to acquit. It's a tough sell. It's a tough sell convincing a jury, that the cops are dirty. So I know,
I might not have gone.
Just kind of got underutilized given where I think they want the jury to end up.
I might not have gone full like they are, but I mean, things like Brennan was able to spin the missing ring footage as and I would have said, like, there's missing ring footage, there's missing Sallyport footage. What does everything have in common? Trooper Proctor is nearby.
Yep.
They're going to, and I would have even said, they're going to try to tell you that this missing ring footage is Karen Reed.
Exactly.
But how could Karen Reed also be responsible for the missing video at the Sallyport? She can't. And these two things are in common. It is, you should conclude that these two things are done by the same person. And that's Trooper Proctor, who had access to both of those things.
Exactly.
And then, you completely gut Brennan's argument on that one.
Right.
But I mean, this is with the benefit of hindsight. So
I can't help but think that all would have come in had Easter not been shuttled by Bev. Like,
that's crazy.
Like her keeping Michael Easter out of that trial was probably
absolutely insane.
What do you think? Appellate lawyer is going to be a huge appellate issue if this were not to be not guilty?
I was tearing my hair out during this whole issue because it's one of these issues where I think there's a very, very clear legal error. You can argue legal error on this one easily. The law is very clear that with the Bowden, the defense has the ability to present affirmative evidence of it. The general rules, if it's relevant and not unduly prejudicial, you get to put it in. So you don't need a special case that's out there saying applying these principles in this exact context says it's okay. Sometimes you don't have a case on some proposition because it's so freaking obvious already. You don't need, a high level appellate court deciding that in a published decision. But I was extremely unhappy with the record that they made as far as prejudice goes. I don't think that there is a good record here to overcome the burden that you have on appeal, which is show me that the error isn't harmless. Show me that it affected the outcome. Because what they did is they presented a lot of very general kind of information. Well, they testified about procedures and they wouldn't admit they got it wrong. And Michael Easter would have testified about procedures. It wasn't a good offer of proof. For an offer of proof, I need to know details. I need to know exactly what's the policy that they violated. You said in your motion, you're going to talk about Massachusetts State Police procedures, their protocols. Well, give them to me. Put them in my record so that I know what they are. And then, if I'm up explaining to the Court of Appeals why this mattered, I can say, because Yuri said this and Michael Easter would have testified that the policy is that. And so it would have shown that Yuri, the supervisor who's in charge of the policies, either doesn't care about the policy or is making a special exception to this policy or whatever. But I need a good record of what that is. So I wanted an affidavit from Michael Easter. Give me his testimony outline. Give me his exhibits. Tell me what policies you're going to rely on. That's the kind of record you need on an evidentiary issue like this. So unfortunately, I don't think it's going to end up being a strong appeal issue, because even though legally I think it's a very strong argument, we don't have the fact record to be able to overcome the harmless error objection. So
well, that's scary.
Yeah, that's scary. Because we're talking about a case where, obviously the four of us understand the importance of a chain of custody, wherein a chain of custody, for the most part, is completely non-existent here. If I had to hear Hank Brennan talk about the field of debris one more fucking time, when I sit here today having no idea where they found any of that shit in the yard,
or how it got there, how it got over there.
That was so infuriating to me, the having it both ways, where it's no, we know exactly where the taillight is. Really, Yuri? Where is it? In the general area.
What? Oh, man.
Yeah. There. And here's
around in there.
But here's my question.
I mentioned it before. The thing that drove me nuts was blaming the snow, because the snow is not an excuse.
Yeah.
And there's a whole range of things they could have done. Well, let's say they were just we don't know what to do. Even if they just gone in and literally just thrown tarps over the area and been all right, well, the tarps aren't the best, but at least they're going to prevent anybody from walking on it or throwing anything into the area or whatever. That would have been better than what they did. Because what they did was just well, it's snowing, so get out the leaf blower and then release the scene, and then we'll just drive by it every so often and have an eyeball out the window.
A peek.
You're spotting shit from the window.
Weird about that explanation is that then that didn't end up happening anyway, right? That it ended up just being Buchanan and Proctor that come in with more. So do your guys suck? They don't pay any attention to what you say, and they didn't do what you said.
They were all supposed to be driving by.
Yeah. Or are they blind? They couldn't be bothered to stop. What's the story here?
Right. And can someone explain to me this? Somehow you've got a glass that breaks and you've got a tail light that shatters. Somehow they get every single piece of that fucking tail light. They rebuild an entire tail light, but for the pieces that would have been on Meadows. But they find 2 pieces of glass that match. What? How did you find every piece of a taillight to rebuild it and 2 pieces of broken glass?
Yeah.
Well, here's the other one that just astounds me. If their theory is that he's got like glass in hand. I think I've got a glass here somewhere. Here we go. He's got glass in hand and he's hit and the glass breaks in his hand.
Where's the blood?
Mhm.
How is his hand not burger? Because I've
Yeah.
seen what glassing injuries look like. They're horrific.
Mhm.
There is no way that a glass shatters in his hand and he doesn't have deep cuts where you can like see bones, see tendon.
Mhm.
Or his
Instead,
knuckles were
his-
smashed on the other side. It's got to be one or the other. Either he's got glass in him or his hand is hamburger.
I mean, it's got to be both. And yet,
Both.
at the end of this, he could still be a hand model. I don't get it. Like, it's
Yeah.
Red's daughter says, in my opinion, uninterested attorneys should be available in the jury rooms to answer questions, explain legal terminology and questions in all trials.
no.
I
It's got to
understand,
be
right? But we understand where you're coming from with that,
Uninterested is aspirational.
right? And you got to know what's being said because not every
Yeah.
lawyer can say no. But we understand like your point. But yeah, it wouldn't work in
Even
theory.
judges make big mistakes on that. It's got to
Yeah.
be something where, you know, and it's some I've seen literally, you know, a judge instructs a jury like the law says X, and a lawyer goes, no,
No.
and the judge
Right.
goes, oh, right, no, the law actually says Y.
Right,
Disregard
all
what
the
I just
time,
said.
all
You
the
know?
time. And Lake dude, I'm sorry, but no. Mark Wahlberg, he's got a little spot in my heart, and I'm not feeling it. Sorry, that came from your channel. That one's out. Out.
I could see maybe Edward Norton.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
I like Edward Norton. That'd be a good
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
E. Koala T. I think Alessi might be too technical and was going to confuse the jury. That's going back to Bob's comment earlier about were you guys surprised that Alan
Mhm.
Jackson handled Arca?
I thought it made sense that Alan handled Arca since he had from the very first trial. You know, he was the point of contact. It was already prepped for him. And then when I thought about it too, it kind of makes sense that Alessi is mostly the other guy's expert guy. You
Right.
know, he's
Yeah.
there to cross experts far more than he is to prep his own.
Right. Yep. All right. Now you got a Christian Borle. How do you say that?
I don't know this one.
As Rentschler, spitting image. Well, Bob will look it up when he comes back. Vanasser says, I'd write in not guilty on the verdict form if we ruled out some of the lessers so it accurately reflects what we acquitted. Thoughts how it would play out. We tossed this around earlier. Is it possible
Disaster.
that some jurors might be like, all right, we're saying no to this. We're just going to X through it. Bob said, or write in not guilty. But jurors do like to follow the rules and be like, we weren't told we were allowed to do that. So do you?
And the instant they start coloring outside the lines
Yes.
is a potential for the judge to be like, well, the jurors have gone rogue. Mistrial.
Mistrial. Yeah, this
Yeah.
is disaster. Unfortunately, going and like modifying the instructions, the verdict form, any of that stuff, this is spelling disaster because it's not following the instructions of the court. And then what does it mean? And you have to sort through what does it mean without actually being able to ask the jurors what it means because you don't get to ask them about what have you been talking about there back in that deliberation room that you've decided on. We're supposed to just defer to this verdict form. So what you're going to end up with is a prosecutor, a defense lawyer, and a judge sitting there arguing about what does it mean that they did this and having different interpretations about the significance of it. And it's just going to unsettle the whole process.
Yeah.
They're going to look for, you know, a way to say that it's erroneous or the jury misunderstood or the jury disregarded the instructions or something like that if they can. And then exactly like Ian said, they're not following the instructions. We're done. Mistrial. See you back for round number 3.
Exactly. And Prime Finder from your channel wants to know, could juror in seat 1 refuse to be the foreperson?
Yes, they were asked.
I don't see why not.
Right. I think they could have. I have no idea what happens when that does happen, but
juror in seat number 2. Will you be the foreperson? I think that's what. Yeah,
probably. Greg says Jim Parsons for Hank Brennan and Kathy Bates for Dr. Russell. All right.
Yeah, we like Kathy Bates for Dr. Russell.
Yeah, that's a good one. Caitlin C. Retrial scheduled this week. No court Thursday or Friday. Wait, but we've already said, you said there is court Friday.
Sue is reporting that there is court on Friday, just not on Thursday.
Right.
And it says, let me see if Jess Machado is saying no court Thursday or Friday. So we have mixed
I looked on
information
the
here.
legal holidays says Juneteenth is June 19th, a Thursday. That's all it says. Doesn't say anything about
Also Friday.
Right.
No, that seems like a Bev thing.
I mean, that the number of times I've seen judges go like, and we're just going to take an extra day off because I happen to want to be at the cabin. But I mean, I don't know that she would do that on this particular trial at this
I would
particular
hope
juncture.
not.
This
She's
particular
been
trial.
like, she's been. Mary Loughran says AJ worked for 5 years as a jet mechanic in the United States Air Force. I think that's why he was the best one to talk to ARCA. Good point. Good point. And Sue from your channel says there is no court in the Karen Reed trial this coming Thursday nor Friday. If a verdict is not in by Wednesday, we'll be back next week. So we're still trying to figure that out. But thank you. The rural juror from your channel, from your channel says, right? I think of AN. I think of AN as the real life version. What's AN?
That's got to be AJ because N and J are next to each other on the keyboard.
Got it. Okay. Version of Raphael Barba from Law and Order SPU years back. He was a prosecutor turned defense attorney who was very charismatic. Yeah.
I could see that. I mean, I really think that's Mr. Jackson's primary skill that he has as a lawyer. And it's a very powerful skill. It's one you can't really teach. It's one that not very many people have. But it's, I think, just very, very notable how charismatic he is. He's able to get in there and talk, and people listen to him, and people pay attention to him. He's got excellent rhetoric, just in terms of like being able to construct a speech and convey the emotion and all that type of stuff. It's funny because in some of the technical respects, he really isn't that great of a lawyer. Like he struggles with details about things like getting things into evidence and how do you impeach a witness and the difference between this is a demonstrative and this is a regular exhibit and stuff like that. So like his actual technical skill isn't elite, but he's got that charisma that I think carries him through.
Well, when we did
those problems,
when Runkle and Bob and I were on that super panel, the local lawyer, Tom, said they thought some of his rhetoric might have turned off some jurors, that he used too larger words and that people would have connect better with Yannetti. That's what he thought about the local jurors. So I
love Dave Yannetti. I love his whole vibe, man. Like he's just I just like his tone, his tenor, and just like his everything that I like the way that he argues. He's pleasing to my ear. I don't know how else to put it, but I enjoy listening to him argue.
My pick for Yannetti in the movie was a young Harvey Keitel, and I stick with that because like that's his whole attitude. It's like if young Harvey Keitel had become a lawyer, he would be David Yannetti.
There you go. Hannah A from your channel says citing missed debris field in Cancun with Rescue Randy. And Ray's Hail HTTR FYI. Court closed Thursday, Friday this week. If no verdict, we'll be back. We're still working through that. We think
we've got conflict between Jess and Sue. Sue is saying that she was told by court staff that they do have court on Friday, just not on Thursday.
Yep. And Sarah from your channel says Amber Heard to play Rescue Randy, no stunt double. Man,
that is the range of her acting ability. So
zing.
Wow. Next says everyone in Mass has at least a family member that killed someone drunk driving. It sucks here. That's a scary thought.
Yeah.
This is from your channel. I'm not going to try that name. Go ahead, Andrea.
Ruieri. We play with them, You get what you get if you have a name. I try to say it.
I mean, I do the best I can. The butchery
That's right.
is epic.
Do you think the jurors are thinking or have an idea that the FBI was involved in this? And do you think it would have helped the jury if they were told directly they were involved? Hello from the UK. Well, I think
Well,
they
you have to
definitely know.
wonder. I mean, they heard FBI enough, right? They heard FBI enough when it came to the other proceeding and the other agency and that type of thing, that you would think that they would be able to put two and two together.
I'd be shocked if there weren't jurors back there doing some math on that one.
And also just the fact that the jurors have such a bigger knowledge base this time than they did in the first trial. Far many more of these jurors know more about the case because of the first trial. Knowing about the case wasn't going to get you, automatically thrown off the jury. So it's not impossible that people are on the jury who came in already knowing that the FBI had been involved because they were familiar with that fact from the first trial.
That's true.
Is it going to help them? I don't know that it makes a huge difference. Honestly, I really don't.
No, just with ARCA, maybe though.
Yeah, exactly. I think with ARCA, it would have made a much bigger difference. And as far as that piece of it goes, I don't know. It was oblique enough, but they're also, that agency, that independent agency that hired you, the word games that they played. It would be hard to miss it, I think.
It
But
would.
if they want to be back there not speculating, then maybe they haven't figured it out.
We've got a friend from your channel over here. Robot Glock says, since you phony grifters apparently value money / views over disappointing a 2-time orphan and her baby brother who lost their third parent, thanks to Karen Reed, have some money. Sad seeing y'all choose grift over integrity.
Ooh, can I address this one?
Great.
Yes.
Cheers. Enjoy your day. Well,
Here's the thing. First of all, it's the Commonwealth's job to prove things, and they haven't proven shit. So if you're upset, we're not the people to be upset with. You should be sending your nasty grams over to Hank Brennan, and he could probably use the $10 because this might not be the best move for his career. So he could use the $10 too. But
just going to put it out there that when you're the one adultifying the children over their expectations of the adult criminal process, you're probably not the good guy.
Yeah, victim petting. Gross.
The other thing is, yes, we don't actually do verdicts to make anybody happy, because if we have to actually prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, you shouldn't send somebody to jail for life just because you're like, well, some kids will be real sad if we don't. That's not how this justice system works.
If you expect anybody to be like happy and joyful because they've got a verdict and everything is okay now and all is right with the world, I'm here to tell you, you probably haven't lost a loved person to crime, because there is no verdict that is going to suddenly now make this a happy situation, something that we're glad about. There's no fix to the tragedy that already happened that all these people will have to live with for the rest of their lives, regardless of anything that happens here in this court.
Now, those are all thoughtful answers, and here's my response.
Your mama. Oh,
yeah.
I thought he was going to say your mama. That's one of his favorites. Leah M from your channel says, how disappointed will the jurors be if they come back with any guilty votes and then they learn the facts after the fact? Thoughts?
There have been a number of trials where jurors have come back and been very upset about what they've learned, in the aftermath. And there are it happens. It certainly happens. And it happens both ways. I've seen cases where the jury was forced to acquit because it turns out that the body was excluded from evidence or something, and then they learned that the body of the deceased, which they never heard, was found. They just heard
under the bed.
All of the corollary evidence.
Right.
Yeah, was found literally in his bathtub next to the bone saw. And they're like, well, we would have voted differently. It's yes, you absolutely would have. That's why it was excluded.
Yeah. Lake Dude comes back from your channel. I approve this message. You missed it, Bob. This Lake Dude suggested Mark Wahlberg for Turtle Boy. I was like, nope. But in a movie, who would play Rescue Randy? I think in an ideal world, a young Arnold Schwarzenegger to visually signify the strength and bravery.
I'm putting Jeremy Renner out there for Turtle Boy. I think Jeremy
Renner's
Renner.
not bad. Renner's not bad.
Yeah.
Well, she also said, what's his face? Who'd you say just before that?
Who,
I
for
forget.
Turtle
Did I
Boy?
say one for Turtle Boy?
Yeah, you
I
said.
said Edward Norton for.
Edward
for
Norton.
Yeah,
Okay,
Bob said
Runkle
Edward
said it.
Norton.
Okay, Runkle said it. All right. Amor Alessi. Amor of Alessi. Bob's the same. You know who uses Signal now? All the McAlberts.
Yeah.
Irish Rover coming over from your channel, Andrea. If you're changing phones, wouldn't
Mhm.
you just go to the provider store and transfer your data instead of going to a base to snap your SIM card?
You would think.
Yeah,
Well, that's if you
sure.
wanted the data transferred. And I'm pretty
Correct.
sure they
Yeah.
wanted
Right.
that data annihilated.
Annihilated. Chad Smith says there's so much. What's RD?
Reasonable doubt.
Oh, duh, Jesus. Even if the verdict form has it.
Wow. Al, you're on top of your game, baby.
I got my brain fog going on, you know. Patricia McLean says Hank error young people use Signal. Yeah.
You know, this is one of those things. I wondered if sometimes when you're a lawyer, you don't think like normal people. Okay. You think like a lawyer. And so you get caught up on legal details and things that really, really matter to you. And they might be really significant for legal reasons, but they don't matter to anybody that's not a lawyer. And I wonder if that's a little bit of what is going on here with the Signal thing.
Yeah.
Hank
thought it
takes
was
it
such
so
a big-
personally that he didn't get to read the text messages between Dr. Wolf and Alan Jackson, that he's just like seized on it as this critical, important, nefarious thing that absolutely nobody cares about except Hank. Like, is he just he not capable of having that perspective?
I think everyone believed him when he said we talked about literally 2 scheduling things and that was it. I mean, I think everyone believed that guy when he said that. Or, you know.
Yeah.
So no, I agree with you 100%. And also from your channel, William Hughes says, not Jen McCabe, the soccer mom. That's going back
Normal
to
soccer mom.
going back to when you said all the third parties are kind of built right into Jen McCabe.
They really are. And you know, and we talked about that too, how I did wonder if this was a little bit deliberate, because they really have potentially hung the success or the failure of the case on her, right? If they can't get a conviction, I think they're in a pretty good position to be able to go back and point to Jen McCabe and be like, look, bitch, you couldn't sell it. Like, you had the opportunity to come in and, you know, be the witness who just laid it all clear, how this is completely preposterous, how there's, you know, nothing to see here except just a normal party where a guy never showed up and you never had any idea. It was really put on her to sell the third party culprit defense. And so if she can't do that, it puts him in a position to be like, we're never going to be able to fix this. We can't do another trial. We're not going to be able to fix this. Jen, you're still going to be a problem the next time.
Right.
Because I
Just
wonder
do a
about
public
who's
statement like Morrissey's hostage video, where they say, we tried twice and it has become clear that we will be unable to secure a conviction in this matter due to the decisions of many individuals involved, like Mr. Proctor and his texts, Jen McCabe and her decision to lie to the FBI, and, you know, and just like list those out and be like, it's all of those people's faults, not ours.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Laquaria
The other part of it too is because I mean, we know who's blowing up the phone at the Norfolk County District Attorney's office, telling them, you got to retry this. It's freaking Carrie Roberts and Jen McCabe. We already know that.
100%.
Right. Laquaria from your channel says Jess Mikado drove by someone holding a sign. The FBI hired Arca on her way home from court Friday. Could that be an issue if a juror saw it?
The juror would probably be well advised to report that they had seen that sign to the court. And as long as the jury says, I don't pay any attention to it, it doesn't matter, it's not going to affect my verdict one way or another, then there wouldn't be any issue with it at all.
All right. Good to know. Irish Rover asks, after watching this trial, I now understand how the Salem witch trials happened. Seems nothing changed, much favoring the prosecution.
I suspect that the Salem witch trials had better due process, so it's not a fair comparison.
Better advocacy.
Ouch.
Whatever's clever says, count 2. What happens if returned with errors?
We don't want to think about that. We really don't, because it gets real messy. It depends on what the error is and what's the significance of it. There's a whole complicated body of law that gets into like constructive acquittals, like is what they did on the verdict form, even though they didn't explicitly say something, does it like implicitly mean something else? You're probably going to find yourself, you know, in that morass of case law. It's going to be messy is the bottom line. And that's why everybody wants a verdict form for count 2 that is clearer and easier to follow, so that we don't run the risk that the jury is going to go in and like try to modify it or try to make sense out of it or something like that, and then create a problem that we have to sort through.
Right. Dharma Lama, also from your channel, says, I'm in software development and Brennan yammering on about the data almost killed me. You can't equate the data to the science in this trial.
Yeah.
Ugh. I mean,
Well, his whole approach was one of
Drama Llama. I don't know what I
equivocation. He
said.
loved to equivocate, and he would do it with all kinds of different words with the experts. He would use these mixed meaning of words like event. Remember when they were talking about the triggering event? And I forget if that was with Matthew DeSogra or who exactly it was, but you know, the event is not the event because you have the data event, but then you have the real life event, and it just went into this very confusing line of questioning over his own equivocation about the words he was using. The data is real similar to that, because he's using the data when really what he means is our experts' interpretation of the data. Okay, if the data is just the data, we don't need any of your experts. We can just put the text stream thing right into evidence and hand it to the jury, and you can just rely on that. So it's just one of the tricks that he does to use words that he can load up with a kind of meaning that he'll argue as if it's just implicit and understood, that of course that's what that means, but you don't have to take his word for it.
That's for sure.
You can understand it as meaning what his expert is saying about the data is really what he means.
So Schmo says, Andrea, I met you in Delphi, Bob and lawyer Lee too, but I totally fanboyed our meeting and probably made it awkward and uncomfortable. So I apologize. I'll try to do better next time.
The thing is,
Joe,
very
you're
forgiving
awesome.
of that.
I don't remember being awkward and uncomfortable at all at that point. The only awkward and uncomfortable was, the sleeping on the steps. So
Yeah.
Been there.
Yeah. Amber H says, Hank Brennan intentionally said wrong things to get the expert to agree with him, then contradicts and impeaches them and strikes their testimony. It was the CW's only hope.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Allie writes, any action/jury questions? Nope, nothing today. Nothing.
Nope.
Full day of deliberations, theoretically. Abacus Finch from your channel, Andrea, can you guys talk about how every advantage given to the CW in this case backfired on them? Would be fun to hear your thoughts and things that you specifically recall.
We talked about this a few times, how just Bev gave him these incredible gifts that he just like couldn't hang on to. He just had to destroy the advantages that he got. La Posada, Dr. La Posada, I think was a big one. You know, he had gotten so cornered in and limited with what she was going to be allowed to say, and then your dumbass invites her to be like, well, there wasn't even I don't really think there was a collision, you know.
he brought it. She was barred from talking about dog bites, and he fucked that up too. So it was
and like Dr. Russell, she's not qualified. She's not going to get to talk about injury causation as to motor vehicles, only dog bites. But you're going to just go ahead and open up the door and invite her to talk about how there's no injury like that. So
come on in. The water is fine.
Yeah. Like she did so many things to set the stage for him to not have to deal with some of the damaging stuff that the defense had, and he just couldn't take the gift.
Yeah, I mean, some would call it shitting the bed. Thank you so much, by the way, Abacus. Casey at the
one
back.
of many things that Brennan seems to have in common with Amber Heard.
With Amber Heard.
Casey at the back gifted 5DD memberships. Thank you very much, Casey. Appreciate you always. Andrea from your channel, Truth, To Truth for Liberty. I estimate 99.5 of free Karen Reed adherents would convict Kelly Dever of lying based solely on conjecture, speculation, and innuendo that grabbed their ears, giving reasonable doubt consideration to Karen Reed, but not Kelly Dever. Well, Kelly Dever's not on trial, and she changed her story under the premises of a false memory, which is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of. I mean, look, I mean, like, had he not gotten her to say that my entire career depends on what I say in this courtroom, I don't know.
However you slice it, Kelly Dever should not be a police officer because either she lied for story 1, or she lied for story 2, or her memory is so fragile that she cannot be trusted for testimony for anything. This person pulled a gun on me, then ran, and then we didn't find the gun. Well, that could be that the gun was thrown away because people throw away guns and they don't always get found. Or did she have a false memory of seeing the gun? Did she pull a gun herself and shoot at this guy several times based on a false notion that he had a gun? Like, if she can't be trusted to give credible and consistent accounts of things, she should not be a police officer. So you can absolutely say, I think she's innocent. I think Dever didn't lie. But if you think that her story of having had a false memory is a credible story, then you should be demanding that she not be a police officer anymore, because anybody who she encounters is potentially subject to, her false memories.
Yeah,
I thought the issue with Kelly Devers wasn't so much that she was lying. It's that she told a little too much truth. She said the part you weren't actually supposed to say.
Right.
That was her real downfall.
Yeah, do the right thing, Kelly Dever. Do the right thing. So, and here's my thing: with great power comes great responsibility. And believe me when I tell you this, that badge and that gun are great power. And any defense attorney will tell you that it's always been, up until very, very recently, it has been a foregone conclusion for most jurors that they find cops to be more credible than the average citizen when they're in that room on that stand. And I hold them to that account. And if they're going to get on the stand and change their story like that, I hold them to a different standard. Now, I think that has changed, as we've seen that not all cops are good guys. Cops lie, cops cheat, cops plant evidence. They do those things.
I mean, the number of times body cameras have caught cops now, especially the body cameras that do things like when you turn them on, they get the previous 30 seconds or something. Because the number of times there have been officers who are like, body camera off, and then throw gun into car, and then body camera on, and it captures the previous 30 seconds so you can see the gun get tossed, and then it's like, oh, found a gun. It's like, yeah, really? But I mean, here we mostly do bench trials. In Canada, we have far fewer jury trials. They're mostly for, and what we see is even judges do this. There's a decision that just came out where they've excluded all sorts of fun stuff, a gun and drugs, based on finding that the officer's evidence was not credible. Well, the only way the officer's evidence in this case is not credible is if the officer is lying. But they don't say that. They provide every excuse for the officer must be mistaken. And no, just say the officer is lying and end their career. Because if the officer lied to you, end them. Like, get up there and do it. Because either you should be ending their career or you should be accepting their evidence. And that's really those are really the alternatives. So
100%. 100%.
Amen.
Yeah.
So, and this was the end of Two Truth for Liberty. If we want a better society, that has to change. That was in relation to the last comment. Thank you. Two Truth for Liberty. I mean, we all want a better society. I think we'd all agree on that. We may disagree on how we get there, but your point's taken. Andrea, from your channel, John Johnson. Andrea's I'll allow it is the new gold standard, baby. Yeah, it was like my Lally, my objections. Like I had mastered Lally's objections from trial one, so that was
Nice.
I like to think that was the gold standard.
My favorite, my Lally. I've been throwing back to Lally like from the very beginning. Whenever I need a little remembrance of what trial one was like, I have his opening line from his opening statement. It's almost as good as John O'Keefe was 46 years old as an opener for closing. But let me share it with you guys. Okay, are you ready?
Yeah.
Isn't it like 20 minutes long though? That first sentence?
So as your honor was telling you, this is one of the two opportunities I will get to address you. Doesn't that just take you back to the innocent days of Lally?
Yeah, I mean, the irony of like yearning for Lally, like midway through that trial, was just too much to handle. I was like, I actually miss Lally.
Oh well, then
Right.
he gave us that wonderful question. God, where was it? Now I gotta find that one. That question he gave us
during one of his crosses in this trial.
Okay, here it is, guys. Okay, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Are you ready for the Lally question? Now, if you know how much in the elimination phase, as far as bladders are concerned, how much loss of alcohol is concerned in the elimination phase with reference to bladder loss?
Huh?
You just remember that question? This is why I could not condemn Carrie Roberts for having the answer. I misunderstood Lally's question in the grand jury. That's why I gave that answer about the Hosslong to Dying Cold search. I didn't understand Lally's question. Then we get a gym like this. I'm like, I can't hate on her. Like, I get it.
What if
I still love the one that the chat identified, which was who, if anyone, was driving the ambulance.
Yeah.
The robots. It was a Tesla self-driving ambulance. Amy's positive pathways. No Slappy from Goosebumps as Hank Brennan. Scott Wolf as AJ. All right. Thank you, Amy. Jay Beans meant for 2 months. Love you all. AB, best comment with Hank. Mom not thrusting. Agreed.
Yes.
The hilarity that ensued from that was epic. Dance Kinetics fan Mia Beto. Jess Machado just posted no court Thursday or Friday, so that's an ongoing battle.
Right. That one's still old. We're still
know.
pretty back at far in time.
We have no idea. That makes no sense to me, but who knows? Nothing does.
I'm going to put my faith on it's not going to matter because Friday is going to be irrelevant.
There you go. I like that answer. Greg asks from your channel, Andrea. Bev is literally the three monkeys.
Mm-hmm.
See no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil.
Indeed.
Yep, when it comes to the
Except
Commonwealth.
she speaks plenty of evil.
Right. She can do it. We've heard her do it.
She's two monkeys at best. Come on.
Right. Because we saw her get snippy with Proctor. She's like, you said the words, you read the words. We've seen her bark at the defense attorneys and rant and rave and have grave concerns. She just doesn't do it when the prosecution.
Babe, take over the supers. I got to make sure Scarlett's getting ready for softball.
Okay.
Oh, well, question answered.
There she is.
There she is. She's
What
right.
are the Justin Wright says, what are the other lawyers' thoughts on Auntie Bev getting that award from State Bar that was sponsored by Aperture, who got $4,000 for this case? That's from your
guys, this is
channel.
the club. This is the club. Welcome to the club. This is routine. This happens all the time. There is nothing weird or unusual about this. It's probably a little unseemly for the judge to go in and like show up at this dinner and accept an award when it's being sponsored by somebody who is appearing as a witness in her court. But it's not a direct financial conflict of interest. It's not something that disqualifies her. It looks bad, but that seems to be the least of their concerns among the judiciary in Massachusetts.
Yeah, and
Yes.
Aperture's just trying to get business. I mean, that's why they sponsor shit like that, because it's a room filled with lawyers. Oh,
Right.
Yeah.
The Joss girl from Andrea's channel also says Bev interviewed jurors one-on-one. Bev denied motion for transparency. Bev picked the foreman. If hung, jury, there is definitely a plant. You know, we talked about this earlier, Runkle, that when we were on the super live panel, that Tom said it was very unusual for the judge to pick the foreman before they do the randomizing of who's going to be, who's going to be the alternates and who's going to be on the jury. And I looked up the rule because somebody put in our chat, well, the rule says the judge chooses first. So I looked up the rule and it says the judge is supposed to choose the foreman after the jury is impaneled. So no, after they're sworn and impaneled. So that could be before or after, because technically they're all. Wait, are they not sworn until they go in?
what, the jurors?
Yeah.
I thought they were. I mean, here they're sworn when they're impaneled, right?
Okay, so I guess they're sworn and impaneled. So it could be. I guess it doesn't matter then. It could be before or after. I don't know why I was thinking earlier that it was that meant after they were like officially on, but I guess they're getting sworn in the beginning. So I take it back from whoever's comment that was earlier that said that. Might have been Lana. So it could be either way, before or after, I guess.
So we've got a different system here that's very, very different. The jurors pick their own foreperson.
Well, that's what happens in Illinois.
But also the jurors also evaluate who gets to be on the jury. So if you have a challenge for cause, that's heard by some of the jurors.
Wow,
You've
really?
got a rotating thing to decide if if this juror is acceptable to be a juror. So it's actually pretty cool.
That's wild. That is interesting. Peace Geek says in New Jersey, first time DUI is just 30 days is the max. That's a stark difference. Mion Bete, I think it's French and I'm not doing it right. Has anyone, are you like French Canadian? What do you have there?
Monbet.
Monbets. All right. Has anyone ever witnessed a juror voice an objection in open court? What would happen? I don't think I've ever seen that. Have you ever seen that?
Not witnessed, but I've heard of mistrials happening from that.
All right, then a mistrial might happen if it.
I have seen a juror step up in open court, and it depends on exactly what they do. And have you pissed off the judge or not pissed off the judge is the best answer that I can give to that. But it's very much a big it depends. So in my particular case, it was a juror that jumped up because he very much wanted to know if the defendant was in the country legally or not. And fortunately, you don't get to know that type of thing in Washington. It's not relevant to whether they committed the crime or not. And it's not really a great thing to be bringing up in the presence of the rest of the jury. So in that particular case, they removed that juror and just sort of, brushed over the rest of the issue. And I think on appeal, I argued it should have been a mistrial. I don't think I won that one.
Oh,
There was a case in Canada that got mistrialed where a juror midway through trial remembered and decided to announce to the court that he'd been a witness in a previous trial against that particular accused. And he's just like, I didn't recognize these, like, judge, I didn't recognize him before, but I was a witness against him
in his
a
other
previous trial. Is that a problem? And they're like,
mistrial.
That's the kind of thing you need to like send a note. Like,
Right.
for,
like, yep, it's all poison now. Goodbye. You're done. Sneck says, my sister killed a man DUI in Massachusetts. She got 3 months because she was pregnant. Wow. That's a shame on all counts.
That's very low for the sentence.
Yes, yes. I'm Kelly and I grow it. Bev had to save face for Morrissey. Didn't he get her the judgeship? Thank you for your coverage. Runkle is the best.
I disagree that I'm the best, but
he is the best. I don't know. Someone else try this name.
Marie Bergqvist.
There you go. In Sweden, the limit is 0.2 and only have 52 persons killed last year. Well, that's, I mean, I don't know how big Sweden is, but that's a pretty low number.
Well, Sweden, it's also like $50 for a pint of beer. So it's you got issues working on both sides on that one.
It's like that whole thing. Just raise the cost of bullets and we'll have gun control. Susie Q became a YouTube member. Oh, thanks, Susie Q. Patrick Henry from your channel, Andrea, says, I was a juror on a semi-cut and dry SA case where the state failed so miserably to prove the case. It took 4 hours to finally speak out about all the crazy shit. Yeah, those are hard cases, especially when
they are.
Those are the hardest. Ocean Beach says there's no court Thursday or Friday.
We'll see. Needs to get to the Cape.
Yep, needs to get to the Cape. Greg over at your channel says Brennan literally said, no one knows how John died. How is that not cause for a directed verdict? It's a good question. I mean, I was literally like, what is this guy doing on the cross-examination when he was like, my experts didn't try to prove anything. How could they try to prove what happened when they know no one knows what happened? We don't have any details. We can't figure that out. What's wrong with these people trying to act like we're figuring stuff out? We didn't try to tell you what happened because we don't know what happened. What? No. Huh?
Forgot his role for just a second there.
Yeah, just a second there. Ocean Beach says headed back to court. Oh, yeah, that was at 3:00. Thanks for the heads up. P401, Runkle and Bob hot wing challenge between you two.
Money on Runkle. I don't even care. I don't even care what else is up with the challenge. My money's on Runkle.
Accepted. Challenge accepted.
He's got his hot sauce right there,
I love
babe.
you, Bob, but my money's on
Oh,
drinking hot sauce. I'm gonna have to rethink this.
Ghost pepper sauce.
Ghost pepper. Ghost pepper.
All right. I'm gonna have to seriously rethink this. I mean, I can put some hot shit down, but drinking ghost pepper hot sauce is a whole different level.
You did not realize you were getting in the ring with Mike Tyson hot
sauce. Two Truth for Liberty says, I think Hank has heard that any prosecutor worth his salt in the DOJ can convict a ham sandwich. Maybe he's trying out for an AUSA job. Were you eating your ham sandwich and then you went in the corner? Wait, did you laugh, sir?
Did you laugh a lot?
We had him on video. We had him on video laughing.
I thought it was super bizarre that he's like, isn't it true you were all laughing at me? I'm like, do you want to tell the jury that everyone laughs at the prosecution here? Like,
my moment, I was praying. I really wanted if Rentschler was more of that guy and not like just, seems like a generally nice, decent guy who's there to do a job and be professional or whatever. If he wanted to cut some bitches. Okay. When I think Brennan asked him what's so funny. What's so funny? Remember he had that chuckle.
Ooh.
What's so funny? I would have loved for him to just answer that. I would have loved for him to answer that question. In fact, you, Mr. Brennan, in your entirely ridiculous case that you spent 30 days wasting all of our time on when there's never even been a freaking car crash, Mr. Brennan. That is kind of funny when I think about it. It's amusing. It hits my funny bone. I guess I got that kind of sense of humor.
I know. I mean, he really just was inviting a lot of answers, and he was walking a fine line with the how did this stuff get there then? I mean, he was begging for them to say your cops planted it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, well, there's
he
a
was-
lot of ways it can get there.
What he was trying to do is bait him into saying that it was planted, and then he could be like, so you've got the defense theory. You've clearly been communicating with them. And I'm like, all this is going to do is blow up further in your face because, you know, you could really get the witness deep into explaining exactly
Why
how
he-
corrupt your officers are.
Right.
There's an
That's-
analogy here that I want to draw, but I can't yet. In a month, come back to this, and I will tell you about some massive own goaling.
Yeah.
Oh
It
boy.
says I've got some stuff going on, but I can't tell you yet. The rural juror. I wish we could have gotten the I hope she unalives herself text between Proctor and his sister. Yeah, you guys just brought that one up too. Grin for me says Hank seems like bangs with his socks on type of guy.
You lost me at Brennan Bangs. No.
Hashtag feed Bob. Daniel C. The cross of Barrios showed me exactly the manipulative behavior behind the scenes displayed by Dever. Immediately knew why she flipped. And what did you guys think of Brennan's closing about Dever? I think I asked you already, Runkle, but Andrea, like what the hell was that? Like, do you think that anyone on the jury thought that was like that's not how they saw Barrios? It's like he just was like, oh, this guy wants accolades and attention.
Yeah, the whole it was the irony to me was that it's literally about 5 minutes before that when he's talking about, you know, these people come in and just doing their jobs and you know, and the defense is out here accusing everybody of being liars, and then we're like 2 minutes down the road and now we're talking about Barros, and why would Barros say, oh, because he's a liar? Like,
Barros is a clout chaser. Like,
right.
come on.
He's got no self-awareness.
He's really off the hook with that one.
No self-awareness. Like
Yeah.
to have those two sentences right back to back like that. Like, what is there?
Yeah.
Like, what is literally wrong with you?
But I thought that what Hank actually did on that cross-examination, that was really his high point of the trial. I think the cross-examination of Officer Barros. That was
really
extremely
good.
well done. It was very well done. He got the point. You were wrong. And that's the way he handled it, the way that I kind of always preferred to handle stuff like that on cross-examination. Is I don't have to argue with you about why you were wrong. I don't have to call you a liar. The jury doesn't have to decide they hate you. They don't have to put a black hat on you. They just need to decide they don't believe what you said. And so any reason
into that, he gaslit him into that.
Yeah.
Oh, and the thing is
Three
that's
times.
the job sometimes. Like that's
He said, I don't think I was asked that question. I think 3 times.
Yeah.
And then Hank made him think for sure he had been asked that. So he's over there assuming, well, if I had been asked it, I sure as shit know my answer would have been, it didn't look like that. So he believed he was asked the question because Hank kept insisting he was. It was
well, and it's funny because we watched him, like you're saying, kind of induce the false memory and then go ahead and say it's okay. It's probably just a false memory you had. These things happen.
God, it was like he literally.
The thing is, he did a really good job because when Barrows started his testimony, I was like, we are done here.
Right.
Like
goodbye.
this is a bombshell. And Brennan actually managed to wind that back a lot.
Yeah, he did.
Like,
he really mitigated that significantly.
I think that should have been something that they focused on because he did say, and I think it was 3 times, I don't think I was asked that question. Before he pushed him into acting like he was asked it. He said that. I don't think they asked me that. It was crazy. Brown-eyed girls, going back to when we were talking about them play fighting in the bar, she says, I think it was more like peacocking. Higgins was trying anything to Karen to look at him for.
Yeah, he can't, just stand there and flex, so he's doing the next best thing with his wingman.
And for the guys out there, Don't. The rate at which this gets guys laid, as opposed to the rate at which it causes women to go, I will go home with literally anyone other than these people,
Right.
is very poor.
Yeah, I agree. We ladies concur with your assessment there.
Not with
Runkle.
that weak ass jab.
No. Andrew's like, I could take him out.
I straight up believe she could.
Yes,
Yes.
me too. Me too. Ellie says, I love this panel. I'm always going to with the hard science. It's more objective than people's false memories. But do you
Mhm.
think the jury could struggle with the basic physics based on education?
Yes, and that's the expert's job to get over.
Yeah.
I thought they gave, like, for even all different jurors, all different things they could focus on to just find that it doesn't fit. Like, even if they don't get to the same piece, like, something's going to stick with each of them. And then the people that do, because some people were saying maybe there seemed to be like someone who does have a science or an engineering, like some kind of technical background on the jury, you know, you can help those people will help kind of flesh that out during deliberations, while the people who that didn't really connect with are thinking about, you know what, Barrios did convince me, and you know what, that weird piece of glass that had nothing to do with nothing, you know, that does stink of Proctor. I wish
Mhm.
they would have pointed out again how Welcher said, well, wait a minute, if that glass isn't from that glass, I kind of want to know how that got
I
there.
want to know that.
He
Yeah.
said it twice. I was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
he's actually thinking. I'm like, yes, you don't ask a question you don't want the answer to, and but I almost so wanted to be like,
Yeah.
you find
And
that
I've-
fucking strange as shit, don't you? If
Yeah.
I've heard through
That
the
would be your
grapevine.
question right there, Ellie. That's all you have to ask him. Dr. Welcher, are you saying you find that strange as shit?
right, exactly.
I've heard through the grapevine that Aperture refused to return.
Is that when you say grapevine? Do you mean people talking out of their ass, or like?
I'm not going to name sources, but I find it credible.
All right. Well,
And
I mean,
we'll find out more later post trial, I'm sure. But
that could be one of the things that played into it for them, or
that's
the
the thing
X-rays.
is, if Aperture said we're not coming back, it might be the glass. It's almost certainly the X-rays being a big part of it. Going,
Mhm.
you set us up to get humiliated.
Mhm.
We're not doing that.
Mhm.
Because all they'd be. The defense played this really well because they set it up so that the rebuttal evidence was going to be an absolute humiliation conga for Welcher.
Mhm.
And it sounds like Welcher may have gone, I'm not into that. Like, that's not my kink. I am not that into humiliation that I want to come back for this yet. So
That's interesting.
Yeah.
but they actually put it, if it's not the case, if Brennan made the call not to, to do the, then what we've got is that the defense so expertly set it up that Welcher was unsavable
Mhm.
that he couldn't be brought back, right? So either way you have it, it's just like the
I
defense
need to hear
set it
about
up
this afterwards.
with
I need
like
to hear
just
about
way
this.
too much in the way of landmines.
Runkle says,
All right,
he's-
wait, I got to dip. I got to go. Like, I got a softball game I have to coach for my 12-year-old. I adore you both very much. Babe, you know I love you with all
I'll
my
meet you
heart.
there in an hour.
All right. I love you guys. Have fun. Everybody, thank you for hanging with us. And we'll see you tomorrow. See you guys.
See you
Bye, babe.
guys.
So that, if they refuse to come back for real, I saw whispers of that I disregarded, but now you're saying it, that really does say a lot. And it
I can't say for certain, but I believe what I heard there.
right.
So, yeah.
It makes sense, honestly, because it's sort of clear in retrospect that it was always going to have to be a one shot with Aperture. Because how can they come back and be like, no, your testing that you did is terrible compared to the no testing that I did is so much superior. Like they were always going to be in a very precarious position trying to come back and respond to ARCA.
And we were talking about it with Betterow when Runkle was on as well, that, you know, if Welcher got x-rays, he very likely would have said to Brennan, hey, I got all the x-rays but the right arm. Where's the right arm? And
yeah, of course.
Did Brennan say to him, there is no right arm?
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah.
And that was just such a weird thing. Like when they said there's no x-rays of the arm, I'm like, so they x-rayed a whole bunch of things, but the part of his body that's got marks on it,
the only
they're just
one.
Like, nah. Because if they hadn't x-rayed that also suggests something weird going on. It's like, we're investigating a murder and we found a gun at the scene, but you know what? We just decided that was unrelated, so we threw it in the garbage. You'd be like, what kind of investigation is this?
In his head. Right.
Well, we kind of went around in circles a little bit trying to sort out if there's any sort of significance to the fact that Dr. LaPosada hadn't seen the x-rays, right? She's the one they introduced him through, but she says she only saw him for the first time about 2 weeks ago. And so it was right about the time when Welcher is doing this testimony. So she hadn't seen the x-rays before that. What's the source of the x-rays that we have? It seems to be from Andrew Rentschler. He's the one that like had him from day one. And it just we were very curious. There will never be an answer to this question. I mean, unless the defense like comes out and tells us, you know, what's going on behind the scenes a little bit, but it just seems a Brady violation. Like if there are x-rays that were taken as part of an autopsy, they are an exhibit to the autopsy report. You are giving your autopsy report to anybody who is doing expert work on your case. And so how on earth could the defense have been in a position where we're going to be providing autopsy materials, the file of the medical examiner? You're the forensic pathologist. Like that's directly who you're responding to. And yet you didn't see the x-rays in all of this. And so it did make me wonder, is there a possible universe out there where the Commonwealth had withheld those x-rays during the discovery process? The defense didn't even have them and got them through the back door because, you know, the FBI got a hold of them with Rentschler, and that's how Rentschler was able to feed him back into the defense team. No idea. We're just like imagining pathways of how these x-rays could have moved around where like different people have seen them and different people haven't. And is there a coherent story to that or not?
I see some people in the chat saying they were in the autopsy files. So
don't you think we would have heard some sort of Brady argument with there, unless it was all in a sidebar? Like we would. Well,
that's the whole thing. Yeah, so much was done at sidebar that we really don't have any idea what the actual issues have been that got fleshed out in the case. Yeah, I would expect if there was something like that, it would have invoked a Brady issue, and there would have been mention of it.
Right. Or I think like a filing, you would think, because they're not shy about filing things.
I would have gone nuclear over that. Like if they had disclosed that x-ray midway through the second trial.
Well, especially because, wait, if they had done that, then you would have expected a mistrial because then Brennan presented perjured testimony. Yeah. Because this guy, either way, Brennan
I would have expected a mistrial, but we wouldn't have seen a mistrial.
But you would expect it to ask for it, be asked for.
Yes.
He put his expert on to say there were no x-rays of this that make people think that there was a fracture. But Sorty Bello took those x-rays, and I don't remember her mentioning them on the first go around, and I don't remember the defense asking about it. So,
well, that's the thing. Like a lot of people were, why are we just learning about this now? Well, it was never an issue before. The first trial, nobody contested. She testified no fractures below the neck, and nobody contested that. It was Dr. Welcher is the first one to come along and say, well, maybe there was a fracture in the arm. Maybe that is an issue. So there was no need to go down that road or really explore that before. Right. But it was just a peculiar state of affairs. It may mean nothing at all, but it's just weird that Dr. LaPosada hadn't seen them before.
Yeah. Huh. So Misfit Joy from your channel says, Hank Brennan reminds me of that saying, when you roll in the mud with pigs, you You both get dirty, but the pig enjoys it. I hope I
Mhm.
never hear that voice again. Free Karen Reed. Yep. And Blue Varo says, drove 85 feet straight back in the dark, in bad weather, with tinted windows, but the road is curved.
And supposedly while drunk.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like,
And-
I couldn't do this sober. And
And you're not on the grass or hitting another car. Trevor Maverick. The glass isn't proven to be from the bar, though. Well, but we do know he carried a glass out of the bar with a black straw, and the woman, the criminologist said it was consistent with a glass from the bar, didn't she?
I don't remember that. I think
Okay.
they asked didn't they ask the bar owner about their glassware? Maybe not. No, I don't think they did. That might have been in the first trial.
I thought at some point they said that it was consistent with the bar, but I could be wrong. But I mean, I'm taking it as he left the house. He left with the glass. Karen said he left the car with the glass. I mean, where else is the glass coming from? But you know, I hear you. I hear you.
I just want to know where the rest of the glass is. Where's the rest
That's what
of the
I wanna
glass?
know.
If it's not there on the yard, where did it go? Did it apparate out of Canton with the people
They
in the
found
salad
all
board
those
and-
tiny little shards of plastic for the taillight, every single one of them.
Yeah.
The squid says, Runkle, the cops knew that morning that John O'Keefe was invited to the Albert house the night before. That alone would have gotten the cops a warrant. But of course, the cops don't investigate their own. It was going back to you saying you thought the glass would get them a warrant.
I mean, they should have had a. The thing is if I'm a police officer and I'm investigating the death of another police officer, I don't care if my basis for a warrant is super freaking thin. Like, if I can put in, like, hey, I heard a bird chirping and it sounded vaguely like you need to look in the house, I'd put that
The
in.
bird was saying, "There's weed. There's weed."
Yeah. I mean, you know, I'm just going to say it. If there was a dead police officer on my front lawn, there would be police officers in my house right now. And it wouldn't matter if they had to say, like, oh, yeah, we heard a gunshot from inside the house, or we smelled weed from inside the house, or, you know, they'd apply for if nothing else, I would absolutely be wanting to be able to tell my superiors, I asked for a warrant and I was denied a warrant. And probably I sent in 3 or 4 requests for a warrant, each with new information, in a desperate attempt to get a warrant, and the mean old judge said no. But they don't even bother.
Right. They don't even bother to ask for a consent search. So
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they asked for a consent search of my house because a couple of houses on my block got broken into, and they're like, can we come in and look around? And I'm like, no. But they didn't even go to that step, and that's just like break-ins in the neighborhood.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
From your channel, Kazar Scam. I'm saying
Zarsasm. Zarcasm.
Oh.
We have great usernames on the channel, Zarcasm.
That is a great username.
Yes, it is. You would think a body on the lawn would be enough for a warrant, not to mention a fellow officer. Andrea, I've enjoyed watching this with you. Thank you so much for your coverage, for covering this and your commentary.
Thank you.
T Mac was asking Beck at 4:20 Eastern time, is the only fan feed on real time? It was. Ex Poindexter, Dr. La Posada came across as above reproach. I'd agree.
I loved her. She was just such a great witness. She could play the game better than Hank. Hank, you want to ask the same question. You want to play this game where you ask the question and I give you my explanatory answer and you say, I'll ask my question again. I will just very calmly and politely answer the question the same damn time every single time you want to ask me this question, Hank. And we can do this
right
all day.
Right. She had him by, she was leading him around. She was leading him around. More of Alessi says, I can't stand to hear Hank is a good attorney. His whole toolbox is actually just a bag of dirty tricks. He's a danger to our justice system.
Yeah, he's a menace. He's a menace.
Yep. Jennifer L. says, in my opinion, Hank did such a horrible job playing prosecutor. He really had me wondering if he was secretly trying to get Karen Reed acquitted at multiple points. I mean,
the thing is if that's what he was doing, then he would have played things differently, because there were plenty of times when he fought hard for a conviction.
Yeah.
yeah, like when he wasn't trying to keep Ark out. I mean, I'm not trying to
Oh
prevent
yeah.
them
I don't
from
care if they
testifying.
testify. I don't care if Arca testifies.
That
boy.
every time he says, I'm not trying to whatever, he's trying to do that thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, I mean, if he ever says, I'm not going to kill you, you should run like hell. I'm not going to hurt you. Oh,
To Truth for Liberty says everyone is susceptible to false memory, better described as unverifiably true memory, and all memories to some extent rely on assumption. Yep.
Memory is messy. I mean, we talk about this a lot, how, testimony is like really the worst form of evidence. It's you have the talk is cheap factor, and then you have the just inherent fallibility in what people remember anyway factor. And it's amazing that we even allow it in trials at all, if we're being honest. If you want reliable stuff, you wouldn't go with witness testimony. That would be like the last thing you'd put on.
No, you're creating a memory every time you think of something. And if you think of
the
it
number of
differently.
times I've seen witnesses completely flip because they just testified to something that is, not true is lots. But it's it's still concerning to, I mean, the thing is I don't know how many of those are false memories versus false testimony, because false testimony is also a huge problem.
Yeah. Draven 782 from your channel says holding a glass and supposedly using his phone at the same time before he was hit. How's that even possible?
Yeah, what was in his right hand? That was a great point. What exactly was in his right hand? Because if he's checking his messages, I don't think he suddenly just went southpaw to hear from Jen McCabe.
Right. Your mama. Angela Lansbury as the dog bite doc for the defense. I actually think that
I like Angela Lansbury for Dr. Russell.
I do, but I kind of still like who you said before earlier. No, I forget who it
Kathy
was.
Bates is good, but Kathy Bates is almost maybe a little too hard.
gruff.
Like Angela Lansbury has the softness. That we get
Yeah.
from Dr. Russell.
Yeah, that's true. Whatever clever. Thoughts on the X-ray gate? I mean, that was the worst.
I gave my rabbit hole. Like I will entertain all of the wild possibilities about why did Dr. La Posada not have the X-rays? I don't know.
And I just like how did it is just so weird, because how did Brennan think that was getting past the defense unless he thought it got that nobody had it?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, why would you slip that through unless you thought you wouldn't get caught? If you thought they had it, then you know that they're going to catch it.
Right.
So if you thought they didn't have it, like maybe because you didn't give it to them.
Right.
I got to wonder about this stuff.
Yeah, we need to know about this. This is crazy. It's crazy. To Truth for Liberty, Devers Sally Port memory may still be 100% true today, but she no longer believed it was true, and she may even change yet again to believe it is true. I mean, I just could, for the life of me, I don't understand how she could be convinced that she made up a memory in her head. Such a detailed memory, such a specific memory. Like, do you think you left? You got off. You said you worked overtime. If you did not see video of you getting in your car and driving away before the time that car got back, then what the hell convinced you that it was a false memory? I mean, that's just so insane that you convince yourself. I just don't know if I could believe that she believes it, but it seemed like she believed it. Do you think she believed that she created a false memory?
No.
No.
No, I don't. Not for a
See,
second.
sometimes I'll still be a sucker, I guess. It's like she was just doing what her chief asked her to do.
I think it is a thing that happens. It is a thing that people do, not deliberately, of course, but it very much is a thing that happened. People remember wrong stuff all the time. People get their memories tainted by, information acquired after the fact, all these different things that are very well understood and studied.
But you don't think this is one of those times?
Well,
No.
no, I definitely don't think that this is it. And there's
It
for a
also
couple
has
of
none of
reasons.
the hallmarks of it. Like, yeah.
Such a specific memory.
Allie, when
Well,
we were in Delphi, and we had the defense put on that expert about false memories and false confessions, the false confession expert, and he talked about some of the hallmarks, ways that you can tell the difference between somebody who has talked themselves into believing something versus something that is sincerely true, and you're just responding to it. And he described how with a true memory, it will have all kinds of associations with it. It will be sensory experience. You'll be able to put yourself there and live it. You'll be able to describe things like how you felt, and just those levels of granularity that speak to the experience of that moment. When you're trying to talk yourself into it, it's more of a story that you tell. It's I think this is what happened, or maybe this is how it happened. And it was ironic because it was just so like on point with what
Right,
Richard
because she
Allen
said it was weird.
it's like it's like explicit. But so that was kind of the description between how you can just sort of tell from the narrative that you get. You can have some hints about, is this likely to be sincere? Is this likely to be something that's confabulated? And so with Kelly Devers, she had all that level of detail, guys. She had that experience. She remembered watching it on the screen. She remembered feeling that it was weird, and and she thought it was strange at the time. It had that memory of having experienced that moment was built into her report. So I think she was right. And then the same thing too with the resistance that she was showing to exploring. How did you see it? What screen was it on? Was it on a screen at all? Were you watching it?
I have no idea why I'm here.
So resistant to like even talking about if there are screens in the
Yeah.
the
That's
room.
liar behavior, not
Yeah. This was, I don't want to talk about this because I'm not prepared to address in that level of detail how I would have formulated a memory like this. It's all too true, and I can't deal with that on the fly.
Yeah. She's like, I have no idea why I have no idea why I'm here. None.
Yeah.
It's like, exactly why you're there.
You know exactly why you're here.
I mean, you guys threatened me with perjury. Well, yeah, after you lied.
Yeah, if you lied under oath, sure, you'd be threatened with perjury.
And then she's like, well, I asked them, is that perjury if I just said it wrong the first time? She seemed like she really wanted to think that she believed it. I don't know. It was so crazy.
Yeah, and I mean, it's super interesting how she's like, I need a lawyer to make sure I'm not, that my defense here is not perjury. I'm like, yeah, that's interesting to me.
That's interesting. Mark Ruffalo as Dr. Rentschler. What do you guys think? Mark Ruffalo, good choice. Allie says,
like, I'm trying to remember who that is.
I know, I need Bob for all that. I recognize the name, but I can't picture the face.
I know who he is. I can kind of see that. I'm trying to remember something that he was in, but I'm coming up blank.
It's like I have it on the tip of my tongue, but if we pretend this is normal court and Brennan closed first, what would each of you choose to respond to? Well, I mean, I would have definitely pointed out there's so many things. I can't. One of you go first. because he would have gotten to go first. No,
The phone thing, I probably would have gone to first.
The phone thing.
Oh, that he just tried to tell you that he deleted it when the order after the judge gave him an order, and I would have pointed out the arm, and then there was that other lie that we talked about earlier that was so blatant. That now I can't think of it, but we brought
the hoodie they did kind of bring up, right? And Alan Jackson issued the dare with the hoodie. He's not even going to get up and talk about that, and then he didn't.
Yeah, but there was another thing that he flat out, like a real obvious lie, like the one that Runkle just pointed out, that could have been thrown back in his face that I can't think of right now. But definitely the arm, and the fact that his expert used the 50-pound arm. And I can't think right now.
I think for me, the only thing, I don't know if this is even really responding to Brennan, because it's something the defense could have done regardless of the position that they were arguing in, and maybe just didn't as much. But just remind him about the dog bites. Why is his arm dog bitten? Like, that's just it. Okay. The entire Commonwealth's theory. Where is the explanation for why his arm is dog bitten? The medical experts are in unanimous agreement. Those are dog bites. So how does that fit in?
Well, crazy. They said that this is how it's possible, except that the point of that demonstration was not to show how it could have happened. So I guess that demonstration was just like kindergarten show and tell.
I mean,
to as far as that wasn't the right height.
This direct question, what would you choose to respond to? I would choose to respond to the admission, as I see it, that they have no idea what happened here. That's what I'm responding to. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the prosecuting attorney here has admitted that even they don't know what the hell happened here. So how are you supposed to solve it? You're not.
Which goes right into what Dippity Doo says, which is he wishes AJ would have reminded them that it's not their job to figure out what did happen. Mm-hmm. Per Ronnie, that's where the guilty voters were stuck in one. And we hope that they did that a little by backing away from the third party culpability and focusing more on reasonable doubt in the closing. But yeah, to spell it out even more clearly like that, like, you don't need to figure out what did happen. I don't need to prove to you what did happen, but if you've got questions, and he definitely said that, if you've got questions, that's reasonable doubt. But yeah, Dippity Doo, they could have brought that home like a little bit more,
and use that. You can tie that in so well with the burden of proof and the presumption of innocence and all of that, that it is their job to prove what happened. It is not your job to go in and try to do what this special prosecutor has been paid $250,000 to try to figure out. It's not your job.
Right. That's what they were supposed to prove to you. So it's kind of crazy. It's definitely crazy. From your channel, Sandrine Vox Services says,
Peters.
Oh, okay. Yes, Bernadette Peters is Bev. It's a good one. Greg S says, uncivil law replayed the interview with Juror 1 from the first trial. Scary answers. Yeah. Yep. That Ronnie's scary. Sean at Potentially Criminal says, never once did they ask any cop, is this how you were trained to collect evidence?
Yeah, they didn't. This was my complaint with the Easter stuff. Really from day one, is that if they did want to like make a good case for reconsideration, to re-raise it once the prosecution closed, they needed to be able to demonstrate that, Bev, you said in your order we'd be able to get all this done through cross-examination. So we tried every which way to cross-examine on this, and we weren't able to do it. And I'm quite confident that that would have happened. You could see the way that Yuri behaved on the stand. He's never seen this document before. He doesn't recognize this. He has no idea if the defense has fabricated something on this piece of paper. He's not going to authenticate anything that they show him. So yeah, it would have likely gone the way you wanted it to, where he's not going to acknowledge what the Massachusetts state police policies are, let alone how they apply in this particular situation. And so now that's how you go back to Bev at closing and say, look, this is why we need the expert. He wouldn't even acknowledge that these are the policies that he's governed by. But they really didn't they didn't do a whole lot with the foundation to show that why Easter was necessary.
Yeah. Yeah, your point about the record is well taken, because it's a good issue, but you need the record. You need to know what he
really
would have
need the
said and
record.
done. How does the straw, now we're talking about the sipping straw, survive the wind and a plow truck?
The straw was the straw found on the 3rd? The straw was found on the 3rd. The straw is found like 4 days later. How many times has the plow gone by and the straw is still supposed to be just there? Where is the DNA on the straw, by the way? Like, where's the DNA that shows this straw has anything to do with any of this?
Yeah,
and
why
it's not
didn't
just
they
like
test
some
the
rando Starbucks coffee stirrer?
Right. I don't know why they didn't.
I'm guessing that the straws that are in use in one restaurant are probably in use in more than one restaurant in town, because Kenton doesn't really seem like the sort of place that has like 7 or 8 restaurant supply companies.
No,
Right.
They probably
nor do
have
they
like
seem
one.
they seem like a real, farm to table kind of dining sort of place. Like the Cisco truck shows up, it goes to every place in town, and
Right. It's just Lola on the good dog says, what do you think the holdout issue is with the jury? I think that right now they're just still going through everything.
They want some more lunches.
yeah, they're going over the evidence. I think is very likely here.
They're not going to walk out of there without being able to say, we went through every single exhibit again. We did our due diligence. We went through everything. We considered all the arguments. We discussed it. Even if everybody was in agreement, they're not walking out of there in 15 minutes. Like, everybody online who conjectured they're going to be out of here before, because she gave she sent the jury off to deliberate at like 2 p.m. Anybody who thought that they were going to finish that day, it just wasn't going to happen, right?
And we know by when they left early that they actually they didn't get through anything, so it was a worthless day.
Yeah, I mean, they're just they're going to take a while. And even if they were all sitting in the back room right now going, we all are in favor of conviction or acquittal, they're still going to make it seem like they're going to take a little bit, because this isn't like an impaired driving. This isn't like if this was some kid hit a mailbox with a baseball bat as he was driving by in his car, they might have, ruled by now. But that's not what we're looking at.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Skippy one asks, serious question in 2 parts. Any of you believe Karen Reed drove her SUV 24 miles per hour in reverse forward? It says 100. I think it's more like 80 something. I mean, isn't it true that the whole slippage, that could be accounting for some of that, or no, it definitely went?
I don't see why not. Like he explained some of the things that he saw on the text stream that he called slippage, and that was because the engine acceleration, the RPMs were going up, but the speed was staying constant, and so the engine's working harder, but the car is not going anywhere. So that means that the wheels are spinning. I don't see anything about that precludes the possibility of the wheels are spinning at an ordinary engine speed. It's the RPM that you expect. You're not hitting it any harder. It's just doing what you normally do when you drive your car, but the wheels aren't catching the pavement because it's, we've got the cat's track of snow, which incidentally is like right when it's the most slippery, because you have all of like the oils and the brake grease and just all the crap that ends up on the street, and it gets that thin little layer of moisture on it, and it floats on top, and everything's real slick and spins and that kind of stuff. I mean, to me, this is the most reasonable explanation for what's on the text stream data. A question I had too that it didn't get raised and nobody really argued it, but I feel like there should be something significant in the fact that we have this one high acceleration trigger event that we're saying, was a severe, extreme speed backing into a person that caused their death. And we have just minutes before another unusual acceleration event that was a perfectly ordinary 3-point turn, like perfectly ordinary, nothing unusual about it whatsoever. What in that maneuver even would have caused this type of event to trigger? And if it could happen in a perfectly ordinary driving maneuver like that, then why are we assuming anything was unusual, about the second one? It's just
Yeah.
weird. The data's weird.
Yeah. And then they want to know, do you think the jury believes that she did? I think probably some jurors do believe that she backed up 80 miles per hour. I don't know why give up on the key cycle so easy. I still think those key cycles could mean that this reversing thing was, or the 3-point turn was what was happening in the driveway with the car getting on the thing. The key cycles still don't line up to me. Am I crazy?
No, you're not crazy. And I attribute this. The reason why they didn't challenge it, I think, is because of the new data acquisition. Now they have the times, the dates associated with the the infotainment off and on, and so they can like tie those together, I guess. But I always had a million questions about that. I'm super sus, by the way, of the new acquisition, that there's just somehow an SD card on this board that all of these professional forensic people, Maggie Gaffney overlooked it, Nicholas Guarino overlooked it. Like it's an SD card, like it's something a layperson like you or me would be able to see on a board and recognize. That's
I mean,
that's a thing that has memory in it. Like that will have a thing.
They never knew this before. It was not a thing, didn't exist before, because Brennan kept acting like his guy discovered something that it sounds like at best he stumbled upon, and we're not even sure if it's.
Yeah, I'm suspicious of all of that. I really am, and the information that they found on it.
I wouldn't be suspicious in any other trial, except the problem is that this trial is so covered in grease that it's basically about to be a chip fire. It's insane.
If we're already entertaining the possibility that cops went out and smashed up the taillight and sprinkled it on the lawn and took some random glass and stuck it on the bumper, then why would I think, but they wouldn't fabricate data and put it on an SD chip and then pretend that SD chip just got overlooked on the board. Like, that's where they're going to suddenly draw the moral line and clutch their pearls. Like, no, of course, if they would do any of it, they would be capable of any of it. So it's unfortunate to have to be this suspicious, but it's their behavior that put us in this position.
Yeah. Chopped Trial says, do you think they would prefer the OUI over mistrial? Absolutely, which is why they stuck it in there to begin with. That's for sure. To Truth for Liberty, crime junkie jury channel held mock deliberation, resulted unanimous not guilty on all counts. All right. Crime junkie jury channel. I'm not even familiar with that. All right, we got another. Odin's Martyr says Paul Rubens, Pee Wee Herman as Brennan. That's a good one. Pee Wee Herman as Brennan. Lola the good dog.
Don't do that to Pee Wee. I love Pee Wee.
Sorry, we take it back. Can't do it to Pee Wee. Fun fact, AJ was a producer on the show Ray Donovan. Oh, is that true? Wish Karen Reed had a real life Ray Donovan to fix this injustice. Yeah. I just need a latte. Ben Stein for Hank Brennan. Loving this panel. Ben Stein. Legal onlooker. My theory is Brian Higgins and Brian Albert in the garage. John O'Keefe winds up dead. They put him in the Ford Edge. They wait until 2-ish, pull to the side of the road to pull him out on the lawn to blame the plow. Jen calls at 5 a.m. Call changing to blame Karen. What doesn't work with that stuff is, even with the fairway bag, if the phone is being moved around and oriented in some way, it should be showing some sort of activity internally, right?
Depends on how they move it, right?
I guess so. What about you, Runkle? If his phone's in a Faraday bag,
Yeah, Faraday bag.
does it still internally track some sort of movement?
Yes.
So
if you put the phone in the Faraday bag and you spin it around, it's still going to register like the changes in orientation and so forth. Because like this phone, when I pick the phone up, it opens up the sort of display, right? I'm not going to show you the display because it's got a bunch of text on it, but like the display lights up. That gets recorded
Clocked.
in there, right?
Right.
So it doesn't need an internet connection to record that on board, but
it's just
yeah.
that's why this to me it's all just so unexplainable, because none of it can piece together right for me. I can't figure out how the hell it happens, unless it's just the other thing that I've said is that maybe after Karen left, someone associated with that house knocks him off his feet somehow, does something, and then they still have to drag him to that spot, and they still have to plant all the stuff because the glass doesn't get over there, the pieces don't get over there, like it's like, but there's just not enough movement to get into the garage, and then but what about getting back out to get into the house and then back out? It's like none of the stories make sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's just difficult to come up with something that even would work. My Mini 67 says Lee Pace for Runkle, Liv Tyler for Andrea, LOTR cats.
Too kind.
There's no justice in this trial for either John O'Keefe or Karen Reed.
Nope.
Yep. No.
Sad.
Legal onlooker, she's continuing from an earlier one. If they talked to Lucky right away, they could have tested the car for trace evidence. Looked like fingers on those tiny shards in that container. Looked like fingers on the tiny shards. The ones in the little tin.
The little tin.
Yeah. Steve's on for Aiden. By the way, WhatsApp is encrypted. iMessage is too. Yeah, that's very true.
Just about everything you do online now is either encrypted or stupid.
Right.
Because if it's not encrypted, you probably shouldn't be doing it. It's everything is encrypted. You log into your bank, it's encrypted. You send a message, it's encrypted. Anything, it's encrypted. And the reason why is because all of these companies have recognized that if they don't encrypt things, they might actually have potentially some liability, in the sense that if anything is super easy to overhear, and they're selling it, because they were starting to get lawsuits about, you
Privacy.
said that this was a private message, and it turns out it can be overheard by the dude at the coffee shop with a packet sniffer. Then that was becoming an issue, and people were getting like their bank accounts hacked and so forth.
Oh yeah.
So everything is encrypted to some degree or another. And I mean, sure, Signal does it better than many of the other things, but it's just another messaging app.
Yeah.
Like, I actually
sure.
think that they should have had to, we could have seen Signal like filing a notice or a motion to intervene, like, hey, we're being slagged here. We would like to have,
right.
We have an opinion.
We have an opinion. And Try Bull Girl, I think she said this twice. Maybe I didn't say it the first time, but Bruce Valanche for Bev.
That's a mean one.
Yes, I don't know who that is, but I can tell it's mean.
Yeah, it's a mean one.
HBA, what about Carrot Top as Madam Court Reporter?
I don't know that you'd really cast Madam Court Reporter with anything, so yeah.
Right. Lola the Good Dog, Hank thinks he's entitled to everything because the Commonwealth deserves a fair trial. Hat in on it, Hank. Yep. I mean, he does like to say that the Commonwealth has a right to a fair trial. It's like, well, the Constitution protects the citizens, not the government. So the system's supposed to be fair, and the defendant deserves a fair trial. T. Shaw says Higgins blamed CI. Who's CI?
Oh no,
Oh,
his explanation in the first trial for why he had to get rid of his phone was because he'd given his number to the CI,
confidential
and then
source.
the CI
Right.
like popped up, but then it was like a month later. The whole timing didn't work. It was like how Brian Albert got the new phone for his birthday, but his birthday was a month before.
Yeah. Yeah. A confidential source was trying to contact me. I needed
Yeah.
to ditch the phone. I do remember that.
Wouldn't
now.
that be a reason to not
Not
ditch the
your
phone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if the CI is trying to get a hold of you, that's normally something you actually
Want to happen.
want or
Right.
may need, because like CI's calling and he's like, "Hey man, they discovered me. I need help." And you're like, wrong number.
I'm going to ditch my phone on a military base. Alexa G says Mario Lopez should play Dr. Wolf. That shows how old we are, that Mario Lopez is still our like hottie. Mario Lopez. That's wasn't that that kids show he was on?
Yeah, Saved by the Bell.
Saved by the Bell, right?
Mario Lopez is big. He's a big boxing fan. He knows boxing real well. He like does some commentating and stuff on boxing.
Yeah, he's still pretty hot, right?
If that's your type. If that's your type.
Okie Angel says, so the ones that know about the FBI from the first trial, are they able to talk about that in the jury deliberations? I mean, they probably can't talk about what they knew outside of trial, but a lot, if they did know it, they could just reference that they figured it out in this trial because there was enough hints about that with the, the agents. I think the FBI was actually said by Dever, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, I think Dever said FBI. Not a number of them. A number of them said FBI. Like so many of them said FBI. I started to lose track about who all said FBI.
Hanny, I try to keep conspiracy to a minimum because John could have slipped and hit his head accidentally. Then I think of the behavior of his friends, and it's impossible to square with honest people. That's the other part that makes no sense. I mean, there's just too much weird shit.
Mean, there's
sex,
all sorts
butt
of possibilities.
dials, butt answering during sex.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the possibility that he walks in, is like, "Hey, everybody," slips, falls on his head, and then they're like, "Well, shit." Or he walks in and the dog goes, "I don't know you," like goes after him. He slips, falls on his head, and they're like, "We don't have a good explanation. Like, we're just gonna make this go away. We're gonna put him out in the snow and it'll work out." My larger suspicion is just that he gets into a fight there, he falls. They don't want to explain that he got into a fight, but they probably don't think he's dead at this point. They're probably like, "Look, he's still twitching. He's gonna be fine. We're just gonna put him outside, and he'll wake up later and go home." That to me is a credible possibility. But the thing is I have literally dozens of credible possibilities, which is acquittal town, right? Like, most of my trials, I'm not at this point of like, there are hundreds of possible scenarios where my client is innocent. Usually I'm at, the prosecution has presented one very credible theory, and maybe it isn't true, right?
I am carefully navigating a Scylla and Charybdis of arguments for innocence.
I mean, there's so many possible things. That's where it's just like, it makes me think I just can't see not guilties. My only fear really is that somebody doesn't want to stay so dug in to not give OUI and others want it. That's like my fear at this point, is that someone who wants not guilty on all is going to stay fighting on just a regular standalone OUI, and then we're stuck with a manslaughter count that never goes away.
Although I do suspect that in this case, we're going to very much see the defense going, we would like to pull the jury. But as you said, if the lesser and included hangs the entire charge, that's rough.
Yeah. That's not a good place. Yeah.
But if they watch the first trial, they might just realize that, gosh, that they just have to give. Hopefully it would
Well,
be like, all right, fine, it's only an OUI. She really was drunk. Just
yeah.
I'm concerned that there's going to be like 2 people on the jury who are just going to be locked in towards guilt, and they're going to be facing a room of 10 other people going, clearly not. And they're going to say, like, you heard Brennan's speech. I can't move from this. And we get the hung jury. I just don't know, right?
2 solid guilts are the worst situation. If you just have one nut job, there it's
One,
pretty
they'll
easy
fold.
to go and push them over and get it. But when they have 2 and they got a buddy in there having their back, it's a lot harder to break that. So that is the scary situation.
yeah.
Yeah, one person folds, 2 people can fight till the end.
Texas Caddy says, I know a bunch of IT security folks and people who don't like the government reading their text that use Signal. Neither groups are lawbreakers. Right. I mean, Lil
The
Coy,
more you know about technology, the more likely it is that you're using something like Signal.
right. What do you guys think about Hank asking Dr. Wolf if he thought the taillight shards were planted? And I think you touched on it earlier, Runkle. You said you thought that he was trying to bait him into saying it so you could be like, oh, so you did talk about this with the defense, or you are really an advocate for the defense, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that was my theory on that one. I don't know if it would have worked out for him, but I think that's where he was going. And I think part of it is that Hank seems to be making some of his decisions not so much based on what is the best trial strategy, but I think Hank is genuinely mad. And so I think that question was that him trying to bait him there was because he was actually pissed off. And he's like,
I think so too.
I want to fight you and not I want to win. And it's not a good place to be as a lawyer.
Right.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on with that, Ian. He's come across as very emotional in a lot of these, and doesn't necessarily show up in the kinds of ways that we'd like expect. You know, you have an expression, or you show something on your face or whatever, but you can see it with where he goes with the questioning when somebody's really gotten under his skin. And I think you're absolutely right that's what happened here with Dr. Wolf, that he got pissed, and so he was going to try to push him into a corner of you're going to adopt and take on, like Bob was saying at the beginning, that implicit burden of proof that you kind of inevitably end up with as a defendant if you're going to argue, well, no, don't believe this stuff because the cops did this or because the other people did it or whatever. As soon as you come up with your alternative theory, now you've implicitly assumed a burden of proof to back that up. And so I think that's what he was doing, is he was trying to put him in a position where he'd put that out there and he'd entertain it. And then Hank would get to argue with him about it and fight with him about it. And he's not the expert on the planting theory. So if you get Dr. Wolf on the stand saying, well, I don't know, it's possible. Well, now then Hank can come in and, cross-examine him on all of the details of the case. Like the CERT team was there at 5:45 and the first piece of, they were there at 5:30 and the first piece of taillight shown at 5:45. And so, he would be able to do the same thing he did with all the other witnesses, where he just listed off the facts of the case that they don't necessarily know anything about, but he gets to tweak them, to support his theory. So he would have just backed the defense into taking a position that they're trying very deliberately not to, because they don't want the burden of proof this time. They're just focusing on these are possibilities. But then also just would have had that opportunity to once again kind of make his case, belittling the defense argument with the expert who's the least equipped to be able to effectively argue that position anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Whew. Should we call it till tomorrow?
Yeah, guys, I think it's about time.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me. So
Are you going again tonight, Ian?
no, I normally do a Monday show, but I'm not
Okay.
today. There's no recap, and I've spent the last week doing like recaps, so
Right.
I don't have a show prepped, but I do have a video recorded. So when we wrap here, I'm gonna throw that live, and if anybody is interested in Proven Industries versus Trevor McNally, it's a fun little bit of civil suit over this lock.
Oh.
Proven Industries is really unhappy that that Trevor McNally has been showing that this lock is not great. And the thing is that they're like, what this doesn't show is that you need a super custom shim, and you need all of this knowledge. And I wasn't exactly able to replicate their technique, because when I tried it, I didn't
You
get the
found a
nice
whole new way to break the lock.
well, I didn't get the nice clean open. What I got is the bit of like aluminum can broke off, but it broke off in such a way that the lock was jammed open. And so I was like, well, if I was a meth addict trying to steal your trailer, I'm driving away with your trailer right now. Like, it might not be as nice and clean and pretty, but I'm still walking out with a trailer.
They might sue you next. Now you're trying to show them.
I mean,
now
they
you've proven
might. I actually addressed them in my video, basically going, "Hey, if you guys feel like filing a a DMCA or anything, remember those are under penalty of perjury, and the fair use are super. Like the fair use implications on this one are super obvious. So
Watch
don't."
yourself. Right. All right, guys, go to Runkle's channel and check out the live Runkle of the Bailey.
It'll be it's a pre-recorded, but I might set it up as a premiere. That actually makes a good idea. Maybe
sense.
I'll just do that right away.
Is there Mandy might know how to is that something we can portal to your premiere?
Yes, once I get it set up properly. I just need to do that right away. I'm going to set it up for 5:30. Set as premiere and scheduled. So I think you can link to the premiere now. So yeah, that should be fun. So then I can be in the chat and be like, yep.
Good. Tracy's
I'm actually kind of looking forward to covering things that aren't Karen Reed, because
gotta have your brain think about something else.
I know, it is a real shift.
This case is kind of depressing, because even if she ultimately wins, she's been dragged through an incredible hell.
And they'll never know what happened to John O'Keefe.
I mean, this is the thing, is everybody who's like coming at me going, don't you care about Peggy O'Keefe? I'm like, I really do. And you should too, because caring about Peggy O'Keefe and caring about John O'Keefe is wanting a good investigation and wanting to get to the truth. And anything other than that, even if it gets you to a conviction, is not that. Because I also want, for all those people who are haters, think about this. Let's imagine Karen Reed goes to jail, and then 10 years later, somebody's sitting at a bar and they're having a few drinks and they get a little bit too talkative, which happens in a lot of wrongful convictions.
It does.
And then somebody goes to the police and is like, hey, guess who was getting chatty? And they end up flipping the conviction, and other person goes to jail. How do you not think that that's just additional guilt and suffering to impose on the family, the children, all of that? There is no real satisfaction or healing that comes out of seeing somebody convicted. But I can tell you, there is some real guilt and suffering that comes out from seeing somebody wrongfully convicted. So, all the people who want to come at me with that, they can miss me with that. Because, yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, we will see you guys all tomorrow, and hopefully something exciting will happen. Everyone's going to get portaled over to Runkle's premiere starting in 4 minutes. What do
No, sorry, an hour and 4 minutes.
Oh, an hour.
We've got a time zone issue.
Sorry. Okay. Andrew, you have anything to say before we go?
Not really. Just, patience, folks. This is the hardest part. It's the worst part for everybody. This limbo stage where you're just waiting and you don't know anything and you want to know and you try to guess, but you can't. All you can do is just accept it and try to roll with it. This is the process. And it will come to an end one way or another. It will come to an end. We just got to wait for it. So I'm kind of taking the same approach that I took today, which is I don't have plans to go on and just stream to stream. Like if nothing's happening, I'm not going to go on. But if we get a question or, a verdict, definitely I'll go live on
and you'll go live.
Yeah. But otherwise it's just I'm going to be playing it by ear. I'll see if people are putting panels together or whatever, if there's anything like that to jump onto, but don't have any concrete plans to stream this until there is something that's happening to talk about. So stay tuned. I will be Wednesday though. I did figure out that the Koberger hearing is on Wednesday. I had it in my head for all this time that it was today. Is not today. It is Wednesday. So I will be live streaming that. That's the hearing on the defense's motion to continue the trial. Kind of a big deal right now because of course we're all getting ready to buy our plane tickets and stuff, right? Everyone's heading to Boise for jury selection starting July 30th. Well, we shall see if that ends up being the case or not.
Seems like you think they'll continue it because of the coverage?
I think there's a pretty good chance. I think the coverage gives them the out that they need, but the problem is they already have a layup with ineffective assistance for not being prepared. She's made the record that she cannot and is not prepared to move on to a punishment phase if that should be necessary. So you're handing up an issue on appeal when you have a record like that and an attorney saying, I'm not ready. I'm not done. There's more I need to do.
Yep.
It's an easy way out, and they can yell at her and be mad at her and make it her fault as much as they want to. That's part of the role of the defense attorney is to just go stand there and be shat on while
right.
the excuse for everything in the case. It's fine. But I think the coverage and the timing of all of that as well, it does potentially help them out, particularly given that the court does seem at least getting a nod to concern about the leak and the fact that it does seem like somebody probably in law enforcement did violate the gag order to go in and reveal a bunch of stuff that shouldn't have been revealed. So I think that gives them an excuse to be able to do it. But the reality is they kind of need to anyway, as soon as you have the defense lawyer making a case for ineffective assistance on appeal.
All right. Well, don't miss Andrea's coverage on Koberger. She's always on top of everything. So that'll be good. All right. Well, thanks, mods. Thanks, members. Thanks, guys. And see you tomorrow.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Allie.
All right,
thanks,
bye,
Bob.
Guys.
See ya.